Between midnight and dawn, a medieval inn housed dozens of travellers, prepared hundreds of meals, brewed gallons of ale, and witnessed countless deals, arguments, and secrets. The inn was chaotic and crowded, but for both travellers and staff, it was a vital sanctuary in a dangerous world. Here's what life was really like inside a medieval inn. Before the story, if these help you sleep, like or subscribe would be cool. Also, drop where you're listening from and the time. I check the comments and it's crazy seeing people from like America and Norway on the same video. Tonight's stop, medieval England. Hold up though, get cozy first. Adjust those pillows. Pull up that blanket. Trust me, once we get going, you won't want to move. You wake to darkness, complete and absolute. For a second, you're not sure where you are. The scratchy woolen blanket beneath you is nothing like your soft sheets at home. Your back aches from the hard wooden bench you've been sleeping on. The air is thick with the smell of smoke, stale ale, and too many unwashed bodies crammed into one room. Right. The inn. You paid a few pennies to sleep in the common room last night. Not enough for a private chamber upstairs, those are for merchants and nobles, but better than sleeping outside in the mud and rain. Something woke you. A sound, you listen. There, the soft creak of a floorboard, the whisper of movement in the darkness. Someone's moving around the common room. It's still night. The embers in the central hearth glow dimly, casting barely enough light to see the sleeping forms of other travellers huddled on benches or curled up in corners. A few snore loudly, others mutter in their sleep. One guy's been farting in his sleep for hours, which, considering medieval diets, is an absolute biological weapon situation. But wait, you notice more movement now, the silhouettes of people moving quietly through the dark, staff members beginning their day hours before any guest will properly rise. You awake then, a voice whispers near you. It's a young boy, maybe 12, one of the inn's many servants. He's carrying a small lamp, the flame dancing inside a crude horn lantern. Best go back to sleep. Still hours till dawn. What time is it? You whisper back. About 3 in the morning, he says with a shrug. Kitchen's just starting up. Won't be nothing to eat for hours yet. 3 in the morning? Who the hell starts work at 3? But as your eyes adjust to the darkness, you realise there's already serious activity happening around you. The kitchen door opens briefly, spilling a sliver of warm light into the common room. In that moment, you glimpse several people moving around, stoking fires, preparing for the day ahead. What are they doing in there so early? You ask the boy. He looks at you like you're an idiot. Making bread, of course. Takes 3 hours, doesn't it? Got to be ready by the time folks wake up at dawn. He holds up his lamp. I'm just getting water from the well for the dough. Go back to sleep if you can. You're wide awake now, though, so you decide to follow him. Might as well see how this place runs. The inn is like its own little world, you realise, a kingdom with its own rhythms and hierarchies, and right now, in the darkness before dawn, the kitchen is the centre of that kingdom. You push open the heavy wooden door, and the wave of heat hits you first. After the chill of the common room, it's like walking into a furnace. 2 massive ovens are already being fired up, the youngest kitchen boys feeding logs into their hungry mouths. Oi, who's this then? A large woman looks up from a table where she's kneading an enormous mound of dough. Flour dusts her hands and forearms like war paint. This must be the head cook. Her domain is absolute here. Just a guest, mistress, you say quickly. Couldn't sleep myself. She grunts, unimpressed. Well, make yourself useful or get out. No looky-loos in my kitchen. Before you can answer, a sack of flour is shoved into your arms by a grinning kitchen boy. New helper, he announces, and scampers away before you can protest. And just like that, you're drafted into the earliest shift at a medieval inn. The kitchen is a wonder of organisation and chaos combined. There's the bread-making operation, mixing, kneading, shaping, and eventually baking. One boy's job is simply to maintain the fire at the perfect temperature. Another does nothing but fetch water from the well outside. We'll need 40 loaves by dawn, the head cook tells you, showing you how to knead the dough properly. The fresh bread's what keeps them coming back. Nothing like the smell of it to make a traveller spend his coin. Your modern muscles aren't used to this kind of labour. After 15 minutes your arms are burning from the constant kneading. The woman notices and laughs. City folk, she mutters, weak as newborn kittens. But she's not cruel. She shows you the proper technique that uses your body weight rather than just arm strength. Been doing this 30 years, she says. You learn a few tricks. As your hands work the dough, your ears tune into the conversations around you. The kitchen staff gossip constantly, and you quickly learn that a medieval inn is basically TMZ with bread ovens. The merchant in the east chamber brought a woman up last night, whispers one girl. Not his wife, neither. Lord What's-his-name's man says they're leaving at first light, says another. Heading to London for some big to-do at court. The innkeeper caught them cheating at dice again, a boy chimes in, said next time he'll have the constable on them. It's amazing how much information flows through this place. News, rumours, secrets, all passing through this crossroads with the travellers who carry them. Watch for the cat, someone warns you, just as something streaks between your feet. You jump, nearly toppling into the dough table. An enormous tabby cat struts past, tail high, completely ignoring you. That's Mouser, explains the cook. Best ratter in the county. Without her, we'd be overrun. The cat gives you a disdainful look, then continues her patrol of the kitchen perimeter. She's not a pet, the cook continues, noticing your instinct to try and pet the cat. She's staff. Got a job like the rest of us. Keeps the mice out of the grain store. You think about your pampered house cat back home with its fancy food and endless naps on your sofa. Different world. A commotion outside draws your attention. Through the small kitchen window you can see lantern light bobbing in the courtyard. More people are waking up, heading toward the stables. Stable boys, says the cook, following your gaze, getting the horses ready for those leaving at dawn. Some travellers got a long way to go today. You peer closer and realise there's an entire separate ecosystem out there in the darkness. Young boys, some no more than 8 or 9 years old, are moving between the stables, carrying buckets of water and armfuls of hay. Horses whinny softly, sensing the coming day and their imminent departure. Can I? You begin, gesturing toward the door. Go on then, the cook waves you off. Dough needs to rise anyway. Just be back to help with the porridge. You slip out the kitchen's back door into the courtyard. The pre-dawn air hits you like a slap, cold, damp, and smelling strongly of horse manure. Your eyes take a moment to adjust after the brightness of the kitchen. The stable area is a hive of activity. Apprentice boys brush down horses, muck out stalls, prepare feed. There's a strange camaraderie here. These boys clearly know each other well, trading insults and jokes as they work. That's Lord Fairlie's destrier, one boy whispers to you, pointing to a magnificent white horse in the largest stall. Worth more than this whole inn, that one. Special diet and everything. The white horse seems to know its own importance, standing regally while a nervous-looking boy attempts to clean a stable stain from its flank. What happened there, you ask? Beast lay down in its own mess, didn't it? The boy grimaces, and Lord Fairlie will have my hide if his precious horse ain't spotless when he comes down. You notice how even here, in the pre-dawn darkness, status matters enormously. The white destrier gets the largest stall, special feed, careful grooming. Meanwhile, the pack ponies and mules are crammed 3 to a stall, getting the most basic care. Just like the humans inside the inn, different treatment based entirely on wealth and rank. A bell rings somewhere in the distance. That's the monastery bell, explains an older stable boy. About an hour till dawn now. The pace of work immediately picks up. Dawn is coming, and with it the guests will rise. Everything must be ready. You wander back toward the kitchen, but pause at the edge of the courtyard. In the faint light, you can just make out the inn's sign swinging gently in the breeze, the white hart showing a pale stag on a dark background. Below the sign is the innkeeper himself, talking with what appears to be the night watchman. "Any trouble?" asks the innkeeper. "None, master," replies the watchman. "Quiet night." "Good. Those merchants have valuable goods. Don't want any light-fingered folk getting ideas." Security, you realize, is a major concern. An inn houses strangers with valuable possessions, all sleeping under one roof. Trust is in short supply, and the night watchman's job is essential. You slip past them and back into the kitchen, which has transformed in your absence. The bread dough has been shaped into dozens of small loaves, ready for baking. Now a large cauldron of porridge bubbles over the fire, filling the room with the smell of cooking oats. "There you are," says the cook. "Stir this. Keep it moving, or it'll burn on the bottom." You take the long wooden paddle and begin stirring the thick porridge. It's surprisingly heavy work, and the steam rising from the cauldron makes sweat bead on your forehead. "What goes in the porridge?" you ask, noticing various ingredients being prepared nearby. "Oats, mostly," she says. "Bit of honey if we've got it. Dried apples in winter. Nothing fancy." As you stir, more staff filter into the kitchen. The inn is coming alive, preparing for the day ahead. The hierarchy becomes clear. The head cook rules the kitchen, the stable master manages the horses and courtyard, and above them all is the innkeeper, who seems to be everywhere at once, checking on preparations. You're struck by how many people it takes to run this place. Dozens of staff, most of them incredibly young by modern standards, all with specific roles. The modern hotel industry has nothing on the complexity of this operation. The kitchen door swings open and the innkeeper enters. He's a stout man with a calculating gaze that takes in everything at once. "How's the bread?" he asks the cook. "First batch nearly done," she replies. "Porridge ready in a half hour." He nods approvingly, then spots you. "Who's this then?" "Just helping," you say quickly. He looks you up and down. "Paid for the common room last night, did you? Well, work earns your breakfast, so keep at it." Free labour in exchange for food, another aspect of medieval economics you hadn't considered. "Dawn soon," the innkeeper continues. "The manor lord's party will want a proper meal before they leave. See to it." The cook nods, and the moment he leaves, rolls her eyes. Lord this, Lord that. Same oats as everyone else, just served in a pewter bowl instead of wooden. You laugh, and she gives you a rare smile. Outside, the sky is finally beginning to lighten. Through the kitchen window, you can see the first faint glow of grey on the horizon. Dawn approaches, and with it, the true beginning of the inn's day. The rhythm of work shifts subtly. The bread loaves go into the oven in batches, filling the air with the most delicious smell imaginable. The porridge is seasoned and stirred. Platters are arranged for the wealthier guests who will eat in private chambers. You find yourself swept along in the tide of preparation, helping where you can, observing this hidden world that exists before most travellers even open their eyes. "They've no idea, do they?" says a kitchen maid, noticing your fascination. "The guests, no idea what it takes to make this place run." "I certainly didn't," you admit. 3 a.m, every day, she says proudly. "That's when we start, rain or shine, summer or winter. Bread doesn't bake itself." You think about your comfortable bed at home, your alarm clock, your morning routine that definitely doesn't start at 3 a.m. There's something humbling about witnessing this level of work, this dedication to a craft most people never see or appreciate. The first batch of bread comes out of the oven golden brown and fragrant. The cook inspects each loaf critically before nodding in satisfaction. "Perfect," she pronounces. "Now for the second batch." As she speaks, you hear stirring from the common room beyond. The earliest guests are beginning to wake. The inn's visible day is about to begin, but you've seen what happens behind the scenes, the hidden hours of labour that make it all possible. The door to the common room opens, and a sleepy traveller enters, drawn by the smell of fresh bread. He looks surprised to see you helping in the kitchen. "Is there food yet?" he asks, hopefully. The cook points to a bench along the wall. "Sit, it's coming." You realise your time in this hidden world is coming to an end. Soon the inn will be fully awake, and this magical glimpse into its pre-dawn life will vanish in the hustle of the day. But you've seen it now. The secret heartbeat of a medieval inn, the countless hands that work in darkness so that travellers can wake to fresh bread and prepared horses, the complex ecosystem that turns chaos into order, night after night, day after day. "First loaf's yours," says the cook suddenly, handing you a still warm bread. "Earned it, you did." You take the bread, feeling an absurd pride in having been part of this ancient process. As you tear into the crust, the first true light of dawn streams through the kitchen window, illuminating the flour dust hanging in the air like gold. Dawn breaks with noisy persistence at the White Hart Inn. Light creeps through shuttered windows and the world changes. The once quiet building transforms as dozens of travellers emerge from private chambers and common room corners, stretching sleep-stiffened limbs, coughing, arguing and preparing for another day on medieval roads that might kill them before sunset. You're still in the kitchen, but your role has shifted. No longer the curious night owl helping with bread, you're now drafted into the breakfast rush. The pace is frantic. The cook shoves a wooden tray into your hands. "Take this up to the merchant in the east chamber," she orders. "The one with the fancy blue cloak. Don't spill it, or he'll have a fit." The tray holds a small loaf of bread, still warm from the oven, a bowl of steaming porridge with a drizzle of honey, and a wooden cup of small beer, basically medieval breakfast juice, with just enough alcohol to make the water safe. You navigate carefully through the now bustling common room. The space that was dark and quiet just an hour ago is filled with activity. Travellers roll up blankets, pull on boots, argue over who snored the loudest, and jostle for position at the washing basins. "Watch it," growls a burly man as you nearly collide with him. He's got the red-eyed, pale-faced look of someone nursing a serious hangover. Too much ale last night, clearly. The common room is a showcase of medieval morning routines. In one corner, a group of pilgrims pray together before breaking their fast. Near the fire, two merchants haggle over the price of cloth, using these quiet morning moments for business. A family with 3 children tries desperately to gather their belongings, the smallest child wailing about a missing wooden toy. And everyone, absolutely everyone, smells like bad morning breath mixed with body odour in a world where regular bathing isn't a thing makes for quite the sensory experience. Not like your cosy bedroom at home with its scented candles and clean sheets. You carefully navigate the stairs to the private chambers above. These rooms, while still basic by modern standards, are luxury accommodations for medieval travellers. They have actual beds with mattresses stuffed with straw or wool, small windows with shutters, pegs on walls for hanging clothes, and, most importantly, doors that close. You knock on the east chamber door. "Breakfast, sir?" "Enter," comes a muffled voice. The merchant is already dressed in a fine wool tunic, his blue cloak folded neatly on the bed. He's washing his hands and face in a ceramic basin, a small luxury provided for wealthier guests. A jug of water sits beside it. "Set it there," he says, barely glancing at you. You place the tray on a small table near the window. The morning light shows the room more clearly, simple but clean, with a few touches that mark it as premium accommodation. The bed has linen sheets, not just wool blankets. The floor has been swept. There's even a small mirror of polished metal hanging on the wall. "Will there be anything else, sir?" you ask, playing your part. The merchant looks at you properly for the first time. "You're not the usual boy, just helping out this morning." He grunts, then tosses you a small coin. "Find out if the roads to London are clear of bandits. Ask the travellers who came from that direction yesterday." You pocket the coin with a nod and head back downstairs, marvelling at how naturally you're blending into this medieval world. Tasks, tips, information trading. It's all part of the inn's ecosystem. Back in the common room, the activity has intensified. The innkeeper stands near the main door, collecting coins from those who stayed the night and are now leaving. He has a remarkable memory, seeming to know exactly what each person owes without needing to consult any records. "That's 6 pence for the room, 2 for the extra blanket, and 3 for your meals," he tells a departing family. Safe travels to Gloucester. Near the wash basins along one wall, a minor crisis unfolds. The basins, communal bowls of water with small cloths beside them, are insufficient for the morning rush. People wait impatiently for their turn to splash water on their faces and rinse their mouths. "Been standing here for ages," complains one man. "Just want to wash the sleep off before hitting the road." His companion laughs. "What's the point? You'll be covered in road dust by midday anyway." Overhearing this, you're struck by the different attitude toward cleanliness. For many travellers, a quick rinse of hands and face is the extent of their morning washing routine. Full baths are rare, special occasions. A loud bang draws everyone's attention to the courtyard door. A young stable boy stands there, red-faced and panting. "Lord Fairlie's horse! It's kicked through the stall. Nearly took Watt's head off." Several people rush outside. You follow, curious about the commotion. In the stable yard, the magnificent white destrier, a massive war horse worth a small fortune, has indeed kicked through its wooden stall. It's now being held by 3 nervous stable boys, while the older stable master examines the damage. "Bleeding beast," mutters the stable master. "Always the fancy ones that cause trouble." A well-dressed man hurries across the yard, clearly Lord Fairlie himself. He's wearing fine clothes and has the confident bearing of nobility. "What's happened to my horse?" he demands. The stable master straightens up. "Nothing to worry about, my lord, just spooked by something. Horse is fine." Lord Fairlie approaches his destrier, speaking softly to it in a tone very different from the one he used with the stable staff. The horse calms immediately at his touch. "Have him ready to ride within the hour," he orders. "We leave for London at once." You watch this interaction with interest. Even in a crisis, the class divisions remain intact. The nobleman speaks to the servants in commands, never requests. The servants respond with deference, hiding any resentment behind careful expressions. Back inside, breakfast is in full swing. The common room now functions as a dining hall, with people eating at the long wooden tables. The fare is simple but filling. Bread, porridge, perhaps some cheese or preserved fruit for those willing to pay extra. Everyone uses their own knife to cut bread and cheese, carrying this essential tool wherever they go. You, It's the cook again, finding you watching the scene. Stop gawking and make yourself useful. These need to go out. She hands you a large wooden platter piled high with bread. As you move among the tables, distributing bread to outstretched hands, you overhear snippets of conversation, plans for the day's travel, concerns about weather, rumours of bandits on certain roads. Heading to Oxford? Take the river road. The forest path had brigands last week. Heard the bishop's party was robbed near Coventry. Lost everything. Storms brewing from the west. Better leave soon if you want to make Northampton by nightfall. These exchanges remind you how dangerous medieval travel could be. Roads were often poorly maintained dirt tracks through forests or open countryside. Bandits, wild animals, and sudden storms were constant threats. Travellers shared information as a matter of survival. Near the hearth, where a fresh fire now blazes, an older man holding a wooden staff addresses a circle of attentive listeners. His clothing marks him as a pilgrim, possibly returning from a holy site. The shrine was so crowded we waited 2 days just to approach. But worth every moment, my friends. A man from Kent was cured of his blindness right before my eyes, his audience murmurs appreciatively. Religious pilgrimages were a common reason for travel, and stories of miracles spread quickly. In a quieter corner, a merchant shows small samples of cloth to potential buyers. Finest wool from the north, see how tightly woven. This will last years, not months like the cheaper stuff. Business transactions happen everywhere in the inn, not just in formal settings. The common room serves as marketplace, dining hall and social hub all at once. The main door opens, admitting a blast of fresh morning air that briefly cuts through the stuffy interior atmosphere. A tall man enters, his clothing dusty from the road. He approaches the innkeeper with purpose. Any word of a party from York, travelling merchant, grey beard? Has a daughter with him? The innkeeper considers for a moment. None such has passed through here this week. The man's face falls. They should have arrived 2 days ago. Or roads are bad after the rains, offers the innkeeper, or they may have chosen another route. Or worse, you think, remembering the talk of bandits. Not every journey ended safely in these times. You continue your rounds with the bread, ending up near a table where a group of apprentice boys are wolfing down their porridge. They're young, between 12 and 16 probably, travelling with their master to learn various trades. Going to be hot today, says one, scraping his wooden bowl clean. Feel it already. Better than rain, replies another. Remember that mud outside Leicester? Nearly lost my boot in it. Master says we're to reach Bedford by nightfall. Not bloody likely. Not with Fat Thomas slowing us down. A round-faced boy at the end of the table makes a rude gesture in response, his mouth too full of bread to reply properly. Their easy camaraderie reminds you that even in the rigid social structure of medieval times, there were still friendship, jokes, and the universal experience of youth. Near the washing basins, a small drama unfolds as a well-dressed woman berates a serving girl who's accidentally spilled water on the woman's shoes. Clumsy fool, these are Spanish leather. Do you know what they cost? The girl keeps her eyes down. Sorry, mistress. Very sorry. The woman continues her tirade until her husband intervenes. Enough, Margaret. It's just water. He presses a small coin into the servant's hand. No harm done. You've noticed that some travellers treat servants with casual cruelty, while others show unexpected kindness. Human nature, it seems, hasn't changed much over the centuries. In the doorway between kitchen and common room, the cook appears, wiping her hands on her apron. She surveys the room with practised eyes, counting heads, assessing how much more food might be needed. Seeing you with an empty bread basket, she beckons. Need more bread out there? You nod. Going fast. Good sign, she says with satisfaction. Means we've baked it right. She loads your basket with more warm loaves, and when you're done with that, the porridge pot needs scrubbing. As you distribute the second round of bread, you notice activity intensifying in the courtyard. Through the open door, you can see travellers beginning to prepare for departure. Horses are being saddled, carts loaded, travelling groups gathering. The innkeeper moves through the common room, checking that everyone has settled their bills before leaving. His manner changes subtly depending on who he's addressing. Deferential to nobility, friendly but firm with merchants, brusque with common travellers. "Another night, Master Cooper?" he asks a middle-aged man. The man shakes his head. "Must reach York by week's end. Long road ahead." "Safe travels then. The northern road's clear, last I heard." This exchange reminds you of the innkeeper's other role, information broker. Situated at this crossroads of travellers, he hears news from all directions. This knowledge is valuable, sometimes as valuable as the food and lodging he provides. Back in the kitchen, you find organised chaos. Breakfast service is winding down, but preparations for the midday meal have already begun. Vegetables are being chopped, a large pot of pottage, thick stew, simmers over the fire, and fresh dough is being prepared for the day's second batch of bread. "Scrub that properly," orders the cook, pointing to the porridge pot. "No bits left in the corners." Cleaning cookware in medieval times is hard work. No soap as you know it, just abrasive sand, ash and hot water. You attack the porridge pot with determination, scrubbing until your arms ache. "Not bad," says the cook, inspecting your work. "For a beginner." Coming from her, this feels like high praise. A sudden commotion draws you back to the common room. Lord Fairlie's party is preparing to leave, creating a ripple of activity as servants, stable boys, and the innkeeper himself rush to attend to them. Lord Fairlie stands imperiously in the centre of the room, while his squire adjusts his cloak. His travelling companions, 2 other noblemen and their attendants, gather nearby. The group will travel with armed men for protection, a luxury most travellers can't afford. "Everything is prepared, my lord," says the innkeeper with a deep bow. "Your horses await in the yard." "The meal was adequate," replies Lord Fairlie, which seems to be high praise from him. He flips a coin to the innkeeper, who catches it with practised ease. You follow the noble party outside, curious to see their departure. The courtyard has transformed into a scene of ordered activity. The white destrier, now calmed and saddled, stands proudly among the other horses. Servants load the last of the baggage onto pack animals. The stable master personally holds Lord Fairlie's horse as he mounts. The nobleman settles into his saddle with the ease of someone who's spent a lifetime on horseback. "To London," he calls, and the gate swings open. The entire party moves out in a clattering of hooves, jingling of harnesses, and shouted last-minute instructions. As they disappear down the road, other travellers begin their own departures. The pattern is clear. The wealthier guests leave first, followed by merchants and tradespeople, then common travellers. Even in departure, the social hierarchy remains intact. A family struggles to load their small cart. The father lifts a heavy sack while the mother tries to wrangle 3 small children. You step forward to help with the sack. "Much obliged," says the man, breathing heavily. "Thought my back would give out." "Where are you headed?" you ask. "Gloucester. God willing, we'll be there in 3 days." He looks at the sky, assessing the weather. "Unless the rain comes." Weather dictated everything in medieval travel. A sunny day might mean good progress. Rain could turn roads to impassable mud pits. Travellers learned to read the sky as carefully as any map. Back inside, the common room is emptying out. Serving boys move between tables, clearing away bowls and cups, sweeping crumbs from benches, preparing the space for the midday activities. The innkeeper stands by the hearth, deep in conversation with an older man whose robes mark him as a scholar or clerk. They speak quietly, heads bent together, occasionally glancing around to ensure privacy. You wonder what they're discussing: political news, business opportunities, secret messages. Inns were perfect places for clandestine exchanges, neutral ground where different social classes could meet without raising suspicion. In the kitchen, the cleaning continues. Breakfast dishes are washed, tables scrubbed, floors swept. The rhythm of the inn never truly stops. It just shifts from one phase to another. "Almost done," says the cook, surveying her domain. Then an hour's quiet before the midday crowd. You realise you've witnessed a complete cycle of the inn's morning life, from the pre-dawn darkness when the first fires were lit through the busy breakfast hours to this moment of brief calm before the next rush begins. Outside, the last travellers mount up or shoulder packs. The courtyard empties gradually as people set off in different directions, carrying with them the news, rumours and connections made during their brief stay at the White Hart. You find yourself standing at the gate, watching them go. Some will reach their destinations safely. Others may face bandits, storms, accidents, or illness on the road. Medieval travel was always a risk, which made places like this inn all the more precious. Islands of relative safety in a dangerous world. The innkeeper appears beside you, also watching the departing guests. "Always the same," he says thoughtfully. "Every morning they leave, every evening new ones arrive. The faces change, but the inn remains." There's a strange poetry to his observation. The medieval inn as a constant amid the flow of human movement, a fixed point in a world of journeys. Behind you, the inn settles into its mid-morning routine. Rooms are being cleaned, supplies inventoried, repairs made. The stable boys muck out stalls while the kitchen prepares for midday meals. The brief lull between breakfast and lunch won't last long. You turn back to the innkeeper. "What happens now?" He gives you an appraising look. Now we prepare for the next wave. Always another wave coming. He gestures toward the inn. "Care to see how we keep the accounts? Since you've shown yourself useful." And just like that, you're invited deeper into the workings of this medieval crossroads, this temporary home to countless travellers, this business that never truly sleeps. The morning sun climbs higher, warming the courtyard stones. Inside the now quiet common room, the embers in the hearth glow orange, waiting to be built up again for the midday meal. Another cycle in the life of the medieval inn is about to begin. The last traveller vanishes down the road, and the inn undergoes another transformation. The frantic energy of dawn departures fades, leaving behind a strange, expectant quiet. This is the hidden interval between the morning rush and midday bustle, the brief window when the medieval inn truly belongs to those who run it, not those who pass through. Right then, the innkeeper claps his hands, startling you from your people watching at the gate. "Let's see what the bastards broke this time." He's half joking, but there's truth in it. Each wave of travellers leaves its mark on the inn, from spilled ale and broken furniture to more creative damages that make you wonder how they even happened. You follow him back inside, where the staff has already begun the post-departure cleaning. The common room, so recently packed with bodies and noise, feels strangely empty. Morning light streams through the now open shutters, highlighting dust motes dancing in the air, and revealing every stain on the wooden tables. "Check under the benches," the innkeeper instructs a young serving boy. "Lord knows what they've left behind." The boy nods and drops to his hands and knees, peering into the shadows beneath the long tables. "Found something," he calls out after a moment, fishing out a small leather pouch. The innkeeper takes it, weighs it in his hand, then peeks inside. Someone's missing their coin purse. He tucks it away in his own pocket. If they come back for it, they'll have to describe what's inside. You raise an eyebrow. And if they don't come back? Finder's fee, he says with a shrug. Can't keep an inn running on goodwill. Lost items are just one of the many small windfalls in the inn business, you realise. Between unclaimed belongings, overcharging careless travellers, and the occasional watered-down ale, there are plenty of opportunities for extra profit. Not exactly honest, but in a world without consumer protection laws, it's just how business works. The innkeeper beckons you to follow him upstairs. Let's see what disasters await in the private chambers. The small hallway upstairs is lined with doors leading to the individual rooms. A middle-aged woman, the innkeeper's wife, you assume, is already supervising two young girls who move in and out of the recently vacated chambers. "How bad?" asks the innkeeper. His wife makes a so-so gesture with her hand. The merchant in the east room left it tidy enough. That noble in the corner chamber, though, she trails off, shaking her head. You peek past her into the nobleman's former room. Despite having paid the highest rate, Lord Fairlie apparently felt no obligation to leave the place in decent condition. The bed linens are strewn everywhere. A chamber pot sits unemptied in the corner. And what looks like wine has been spilled across the small table. Always the same with their sort, mutters the innkeeper's wife. Think because they pay more, they can treat the place like a pigsty. "Better a messy noble than no noble," replies her husband pragmatically. Their coin spends just as well. You watch as the two girls, probably no more than 14, efficiently strip the bed, gather the dirty linens, and set about transforming the chaos back into order. They work with the practiced ease of those who've done this countless times before. "Want to see something interesting?" The innkeeper gestures for you to follow him into what must be his private office, a small room with a sturdy desk, shelves of parchment rolls, and a heavy iron-bound chest. He unlocks the chest with a key from around his neck and opens it to reveal neat stacks of coins. Not a fortune by modern standards, but in medieval terms, an impressive sum. "Morning count," he explains, sitting down at the desk and beginning to sort the coins by type. "Have to keep track, or you're asking to be robbed blind." The medieval monetary system unfolds before you. Silver pennies form the bulk of the collection, but there are also larger silver coins, groats and half-groats, and even a few gold nobles from the wealthier guests. Each stack represents a different denomination, and the innkeeper records them carefully in a leather-bound book using a quill pen. Or literacy, you realise out loud. You can read and write. He looks up, amused. "Course I can. Can't run a business this size otherwise." He gestures at the book. Every penny accounted for. What's owed to suppliers, what's due from credit customers, wages for the staff. He taps the page with a calloused finger. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. The inn, you realise, isn't just a building with beds and beer. It's a complex business operation requiring skills many medieval people simply didn't possess. No wonder innkeepers often held positions of local importance. From downstairs comes the sound of raised voices. The innkeeper sighs, reclosing the chest. Never a dull moment. Let's see what fresh nonsense this is. In the common room, you find the cook in a heated argument with a red-faced man in rough clothing. A basket of vegetables sits on the table between them. "Highway robbery, that's what it is," the cook exclaims as you approach. "These carrots are half rotten and you want full price?" The man, a local farmer, you guess, crosses his arms. "Not my fault you didn't come to market yesterday when they were fresh. Got a family to feed, don't I?" The innkeeper steps between them. Amos, Amos, he says soothingly to the farmer, surely we can reach an arrangement. Half price for the lot, and we'll still buy your spring onions next week. What follows is a masterclass in negotiation. The farmer blusters, the innkeeper stays calm, the cook interjects with dramatic declarations about the vegetables' poor quality, and eventually a price is agreed upon that's lower than the original but not quite half. Money changes hands, the farmer leaves grumbling but not truly angry, and the cook takes her questionable vegetables back to the kitchen, already planning how to hide their flaws in tonight's stew. Supply chain management, says the innkeeper with a wink at you. That's what makes or breaks an inn. Anyone can pour ale or make a bed, but keeping the food coming, the wood burning and the ale flowing without running out or wasting what spoils, that's the real trick. You nod, impressed by this medieval businessman's savvy. How many suppliers do you deal with? He thinks for a moment. Directly, 20, maybe 30. The baker for extra bread when we're too busy to make our own. 3 farmers for vegetables. The butcher for meat when we can afford it. The brewer, the woodsman, the charcoal burner. He counts on his fingers. The candle maker, the blacksmith for repairs, the cooper for barrels, the potter for dishes. The list goes on, revealing the complex web of relationships and dependencies that keep the inn functioning. It's a reminder that even in the medieval world, nobody truly operated independently. The inn sits at the centre of a local economic ecosystem, providing income for dozens of other businesses. A young boy bursts through the door, panting heavily. "Master, Ratcatcher's here." The innkeeper nods. Send him round to the cellar entrance and tell him if he lets that dog of his piss on my barrels again, I'll skin them both. You follow curiously as the innkeeper heads toward the back of the building. Behind the kitchen is a sloping entrance to the cellar, the inn storage area for food, drink and supplies that don't need daily access. Waiting there is a wiry man with a face like weathered leather, accompanied by a small, intensely focused terrier on a leather lead. This is the Ratcatcher, a specialised tradesman who travels between businesses dealing with vermin problems. "Mornin', Master Hart," the Ratcatcher says with a deferential nod. "Come for the usual inspection. Any sign of trouble last time?" asks the innkeeper. Couple of big old rats in the grain store, nothing Pinch couldn't handle. He pats the terrier, who quivers with anticipation. This place is cleaner than most, truth be told. Credit to your cat. They disappear into the cellar together, the dog straining at its lead, nose to the ground. You decide not to follow. Medieval rat extermination probably isn't something you need to witness up close. Instead, you wander back to the kitchen where the staff meal is being prepared. With the morning guests gone and the midday customers not yet arrived, this is when the inn's workers get their own breakfast. Unlike the porridge served to travellers, the staff meal is more practical. Whatever leftover bread remains from yesterday, perhaps spread with a bit of dripping, congealed fat saved from cooking meat, and a cup of very weak ale. It's basic sustenance, eaten quickly while standing rather than sitting, because even during this break there's work to be done. The cook slices yesterday's bread with practiced efficiency, handing out pieces to the gathered staff. "Eat up quick," she says. "Merchant caravan expected by midday, going to be busy." You accept your share, surprised to find the day-old bread still tasty despite its slight staleness. The dripping spread on top adds a savoury richness that makes this simple meal surprisingly satisfying. The staff eat in small groups, using this rare moment of rest to gossip and share information. The hierarchy is clear even here. The innkeeper's wife and the cook eat slightly apart from the others. The stable master has his own little circle of boys, and the youngest servants eat quickly in corners, always alert for orders from their superiors. "That noble with the white horse left this behind," says one of the chambermaids, pulling a fine linen handkerchief from her pocket, embroidered with his family crest and everything. "Worth something that," comments another girl. "Going to tell the mistress?" The first girl snorts. "Why should I? He called me a wretched, slow-witted girl when I didn't fetch his washing water fast enough." You notice how these small acts of resistance, keeping found items, taking slightly longer breaks, watering down the ale when no one's looking, are the staff's way of balancing the otherwise one-sided power dynamic with their social superiors. The stable master enters, wiping his hands on a rag. "Heads up," he announces to the room. "Rider just passed with news. Bishop's party coming through tomorrow. 6 horses, 3 wagons." A collective groan rises from the staff. Apparently, religious officials aren't popular guests. "What's wrong with the bishop?" you ask the serving boy next to you. He rolls his eyes, demands the best of everything, but haggles over every penny. His servants act like they're nobility themselves. And they never, ever tip. Medieval tipping culture? Who knew? The staff meal concludes as quickly as it began. Wooden bowls are rinsed, working areas cleared, and everyone returns to their tasks. The brief respite is over, and the inn's machinery cranks back to life. You find yourself drafted into the cleaning brigade. The innkeeper's wife hands you a broom with a business-like nod. Courtyard needs sweeping, all that horse mess from the morning departures. Outside, the courtyard bakes in the late morning sun. The cobblestones are indeed scattered with evidence of the morning's equine traffic, manure, bits of hay, and the occasional lost horseshoe nail. You set to work with the broom, pushing the debris into piles. A young stable boy appears with a wooden wheelbarrow. "I'll take it to the midden heap," he explains, shoveling up your piles. "Good for the garden eventually, horse shit. Best fertilizer there is." Medieval recycling at its finest. Nothing goes to waste in this economy, especially not something as valuable as animal manure for growing food. As you sweep, you notice the gate opening to admit a solitary traveller on foot, a man in simple robes carrying a wooden staff. From his dusty appearance and the scallop shell pinned to his hat, you identify him as a pilgrim, probably returning from a religious shrine. He approaches slowly, limping slightly. The stable boy notices him too. "Another holy wanderer," he says quietly. "We've been getting a lot lately. Must be the saint's feast day coming up." The pilgrim stops at the well in the centre of the courtyard, draws a bucket of water, and drinks deeply before splashing some on his face. He looks exhausted, the way people do after walking countless miles on medieval roads with nothing but a staff for support. The innkeeper emerges from the main door, assessing the newcomer with a practiced eye. He can tell immediately this isn't a wealthy guest, but he approaches with reasonable courtesy nonetheless. "Welcome, pilgrim. Seeking rest?" The man nods. "Just for midday, if I may. Can't afford a night's lodging, but would welcome food and an hour's rest in the shade." 2 pennies for pottage and bread," says the innkeeper, "and you can rest in the common room if you don't take up a whole bench to yourself." The pilgrim reaches into a small pouch and carefully counts out 2 copper pennies, probably a significant portion of his travelling funds. The innkeeper pockets them and gestures toward the door. "God's blessing on this house," says the pilgrim as he passes. "God's blessing won't pay my suppliers," mutters the innkeeper once the man is inside, but there's no real malice in it, just the pragmatism of a businessman who's seen every type of traveller come through his doors. Back in the common room, the pilgrim takes a seat in a corner, his staff propped beside him. He sits with the particular stillness of someone who has learned to conserve energy through long journeys. The serving boy brings him a wooden bowl of pottage, a thick stew of vegetables, grains, and small bits of meat, and a chunk of bread. The pilgrim makes the sign of the cross, says a brief prayer, and begins eating slowly, savouring each bite. Watching him, you're struck by the different pace of medieval travel. This man has probably been walking for weeks, possibly months. Each day brings new dangers, from mundane threats like blisters and bad weather to more serious perils like highwaymen or illness far from home. And yet people undertook these journeys by the thousands, driven by faith, commerce, or necessity. The inn represents a crucial support system for this mobile medieval society, a place where roads and lives intersect, where safety and comfort, however basic, can be purchased for a few coins, where information flows as freely as the ale. More travellers begin to arrive as midday approaches. Unlike the morning departures, who all left around the same time, the arrivals are staggered throughout the day. A merchant with a small cart, a pair of friars walking together, a local farmer coming in just to trade news and have a cup of ale before returning to his fields. The innkeeper greets each one personally, assessing their status, their needs, and, most importantly, their ability to pay. Different greetings for different social ranks, different prices too, you suspect, though that goes unspoken. The inn's rhythm shifts again, the energy building gradually as more people filter in. The common room fills with voices, the kitchen activity increases, serving boys move more quickly, the midday rush is beginning. You find yourself watching this ebb and flow with fascination. The medieval inn breathes like a living thing, expanding and contracting with the human tide that passes through it. And at the centre of it all stands the innkeeper, part businessman, part host, part information broker, controlling the flow with the confidence of someone who knows exactly how valuable his services are in this world of difficult journeys. He catches you watching and gives a knowing nod as if to say, "Now you understand." And you do. This brief morning glimpse into the inner workings of the inn has revealed something essential about medieval life. The complex interdependence of people, the economies built around basic human needs, the social fabric woven from countless interactions between travellers and hosts. The pilgrim finishes his meal, thanks the serving boy with a blessing, and departs to continue his journey. Others arrive to take his place. The cycle continues, unbroken for centuries before and after this moment. Outside, the sun reaches its highest point. Midday has arrived at the White Hart Inn, and with it a new chapter in the daily life of this medieval crossroads. Midday at the White Hart brings a completely different crowd than the morning's departing travellers. These aren't people passing through. They're locals with business to conduct, deals to make, information to trade. The inn transforms from travel haven to medieval marketplace, social hub, and unofficial town hall, all rolled into one. You lean against the doorframe, watching as a group of well-dressed merchants claims the best table near the fire. Their clothes mark them as prosperous local businessmen, wool traders, from the looks of their samples and the technical jargon flying between them as they compare swatches of fabric. £7 per sack, and that's highway robbery, complains a red-faced man with a substantial belly. His companion, thinner and more calculating, fingers a swatch of wool thoughtfully. The Flemish buyers will pay £9 if it's good quality. Question is whether we can get enough before the ship leaves Bristol. The innkeeper himself serves these valuable customers, placing wooden cups of wine before them with a respectful nod. Not the watered-down stuff for common folk, you notice, but decent imported wine from France or Spain. Business relationships need nurturing after all. "Gentlemen," the innkeeper says smoothly, "word is that Thomas Fletcher just brought in 3 wagon loads from the northern shearers, hasn't sold it yet." He delivers this information casually, as if it's just friendly conversation, but you can see the merchants perk up instantly. "Where's he storing it?" asks the thin man, trying to sound uninterested and failing completely. "His warehouse by the river gate. Arrived yesterday." The innkeeper moves away, having dropped his valuable information bombshell. You realize you're witnessing one of the inn's most important functions, information brokerage. The innkeeper just provided actionable business intelligence, and you'd bet good money he'll get some compensation from both the merchants for the tip and Thomas Fletcher for directing buyers his way. Near the window, another group gathers around a ruddy-faced man gesturing expansively. "I tell you, the harvest will be early this year. Signs are all there. Dry spring, hot summer coming. Agricultural forecasting, medieval style. The farmers and landowners listen intently, planning their labor needs based on this prediction. In a world without weather apps or agricultural science, this kind of collective wisdom sharing was crucial." The common room fills steadily as the sun reaches its zenith. The smells change too. Morning's baking bread has given way to the rich aroma of the midday pottage, a thick stew that forms the main meal for most people. The kitchen door swings open frequently as serving boys rush in and out with filled bowls and empty ones. A new arrival draws everyone's attention. A man in the distinctive dress of a town official enters, accompanied by 2 hard-faced men who might charitably be called guards, but more accurately resemble hired muscle. The room quiets noticeably. "Tax collector," whispers a serving boy as he passes you, "come to assess the inn's quarterly payment." The innkeeper emerges from behind the serving area, his face carefully arranged into a neutral expression. "Master Gibbs," he says with a shallow bow, "what brings the town's treasurer to my humble establishment?" Master Gibbs, a pinch-faced man with ink-stained fingers, removes a scroll from his sleeve with theatrical slowness. "Annual inspection and tax assessment, Master Hart. I trust your records are in order?" The atmosphere in the room shifts subtly. The other customers suddenly become very interested in their food and drink, pointedly not watching this interaction while missing absolutely nothing. "Of course," replies the innkeeper smoothly. "Shall we discuss this in my private office?" "After the inspection," Gibbs insists. "My men will need to count your barrels, assess your stores, and evaluate your guest capacity." What follows is a fascinating dance of medieval bureaucracy and creative accounting. The tax collector and his men begin checking various aspects of the inn's operation while the innkeeper follows, offering explanations and excuses at every turn. "These barrels appear newly acquired," says Gibbs, making a note on his parchment. "Merely replaced the damaged ones from winter," counters the innkeeper. "No increase in capacity. You've added 2 beds in the east chamber. Temporary arrangements for a family who lost their home in the fire across town. Charity, not commerce." The locals watch this performance with knowing expressions. It's clearly a familiar ritual. The taxman trying to find evidence of undeclared prosperity, the innkeeper working to minimize his tax burden through creative interpretations of the truth. Meanwhile, the common room continues its midday business. A group of craftsmen, you can tell by their calloused hands and specialized tools hung from their belts, huddle together discussing what sounds like a labor dispute with a local lord. "He can't expect master-quality work at apprentice prices," growls a heavy-set man you guess is a mason. "I've told him plain, my men won't set another stone until he honors the original agreement." He'll just bring in workers from the next town, warns another. Not if the guild stands together. This is clearly an early form of labour organising, with the inn providing neutral ground for these discussions. You're struck by how many different social functions the building serves, beyond just food and lodging. Near the door, a different kind of transaction is taking place. A well-dressed young woman speaks quietly with a grey-haired lady whose basket contains small cloth packets of what might be herbs or medicines. "My monthly courses are heavy and painful," the younger woman murmurs. "Have you something for that?" The older woman nods, discreetly passing over a small packet. "Steep this in hot water, drink it morning and night, and take this oil for the pain." Silver changes hands, wrapped in a handkerchief to avoid drawing attention. Medieval healthcare happening right in the corner of the inn. The local wise woman or healer using this public space to meet clients who might not be able to visit her home without raising gossip. In the opposite corner, a cluster of older men play a board game that resembles backgammon, slapping down wooden pieces with enthusiastic trash talk. "You play like my grandmother, and she's been dead 10 years. Your luck won't hold forever, William. Another round, double stakes." Coins change hands. Ale is consumed, and the game continues amid good-natured insults. Gaming has been part of inn culture for as long as inns have existed, you realise. The tax collector emerges from the kitchen with a sour expression. Clearly, his inspection hasn't revealed as much taxable prosperity as he'd hoped. The innkeeper follows, looking carefully neutral rather than triumphant. "Your records," demands Gibbs, gesturing toward the upstairs office. As they disappear up the stairs, conversation in the common room resumes its normal volume. "Old Gibbs won't find much today," chuckles one of the wool merchants. "Not after Hart's wife spent yesterday hiding half their stock at her sister's farm." "Smart man," agrees his companion, "keeps just enough visible to look honest." Tax avoidance, a medieval tradition as time-honoured as the taxes themselves. The serving boy who's been shadowing you appears at your elbow. "You look lost," he observes. "Want to see something interesting?" Without waiting for your response, he gestures for you to follow him through a side door and down a short corridor. You emerge in a small room adjacent to the kitchen, where several people sit at a rough wooden table. Unlike the common room, this space feels private, almost secretive. "Innkeeper's private tap room," the boy explains, "for special guests who don't want to be seen in the main room." The occupants are an eclectic mix, a man in expensive but deliberately plain clothes who might be a nobleman trying not to attract attention, two hard-faced men with the alert posture of professional soldiers, and a nervous-looking fellow in scholar's robes, clutching a leather satchel. They fall silent as you enter, eyeing you suspiciously. "Just showing the new help around," the boy says quickly. "Pay us no mind." You back out, following the boy to safer territory. "What was that about?" you ask when you're alone in the corridor. He shrugs. "Don't ask, don't get in trouble. That's my motto. But sometimes people need to meet without everyone in town knowing their business. Innkeeper charges extra for the private room and keeps his mouth shut about who uses it. Political intrigue, secret business deals, perhaps even espionage. The medieval inn accommodates it all for the right price." Back in the common room, the midday meal is in full swing. The pottage today is particularly good. A thick stew of barley, cabbage, onions, and small bits of salt pork that add a rich flavour. It's served in wooden bowls with a chunk of bread on the side, the universal medieval dining setup for all but the wealthiest nobles. You notice how people eat, most using their own knives to cut bread and spear pieces of meat, scooping up the liquid with pieces of bread, drinking broth directly from the bowl when necessary. Spoons exist but are often shared, and forks are still a foreign novelty few have encountered. Personal eating knives are serious business. Several diners have impressively decorated sheaths hanging from their belts, suggesting that one's eating knife was both practical tool and status symbol in medieval society. The innkeeper's wife oversees the midday service with sharp eyes, watching for empty cups that represent missed profit opportunities. She moves through the room with the confidence of someone who knows her domain perfectly, occasionally barking orders to serving boys who move too slowly. More ale to the merchant's table, bread's running low. You, check on the pottage pot. Make sure it doesn't burn. Unlike her husband's diplomatic approach, she rules through direct command, and the staff respond instantly to her orders. In many ways, she's the practical engine that keeps this place running while her husband handles the public-facing aspects of the business. Everyone has secrets, she says, catching you watching her. Everyone has something they don't want others to know. An innkeeper who remembers that fact never goes hungry. She gives you a meaningful look before moving on to supervise the clearing of emptied bowls. Outside, the sun beats down on the courtyard where a new group of travellers has arrived, a merchant caravan with heavily laden pack horses and a few armed men for protection. They've stopped for the midday meal and rest rather than overnight accommodation, so the stable boys are merely watering the animals and providing temporary shade rather than full stabling services. The merchant in charge, a prosperous-looking man in a travel-stained but good-quality cloak, enters the common room and scans it with the practiced eye of someone who spends his life assessing commercial opportunities. Spotting the wool merchants, he makes his way directly to their table. "Masters, good fortune finding you here. I've just come from the southern shearing." Another commercial connection made, another deal in the making. The inn serves as medieval business incubator, stock exchange, and social network all at once. By the hearth, an entirely different scene unfolds. A man with the rough hands of a labourer sits with his elderly father, supporting him as he shakily raises a spoon to his lips. "Eat, father. Bit more. Innkeeper's wife put extra meat in yours, see?" The old man manages another spoonful of pottage. "Good of her. Always had a soft spot for your mother. She did." This small moment of tenderness amid the business transactions reminds you that the inn serves emotional needs too, a place where a working man can bring his elderly father for what might be his only substantial meal of the day, where community connections maintain a social safety net of sorts. The tax collector descends from the upstairs office, his expression even sourer than before. Clearly, the innkeeper's bookkeeping has proven frustratingly adequate, legal enough to avoid penalties, but creative enough to minimize the tax burden. Gibbs and his men depart with minimal farewell, though you notice one of the guards accepts a discreet cup of ale from a serving boy as he leaves. Everyone has their price in this medieval economy of favours and obligations. The innkeeper returns to the common room, looking satisfied. "Another year, another assessment," he announces to the room at large. "Taxes remain the punishment for success, my friends." This draws appreciative chuckles from the merchants and local craftsmen, who clearly share his sentiment about taxation. As the midday meal concludes, the room's energy shifts again. Some customers leave, heading back to workshops or fields. Others linger, transitioning from eating to serious drinking, with games of dice appearing on several tables. A few people simply find comfortable corners to doze in, sleeping off their meal during the hottest part of the day. The innkeeper's wife appears at your side, wiping her hands on her apron. "Make yourself useful and help clear these tables," she says, nodding toward the recently vacated spots. "New crowd will be in soon for the afternoon ale," as you stack wooden bowls and gather scattered bread crusts, which will be collected for animal feed, nothing wasted in this economy. You listen to the fragments of conversation flowing around you. The midday crowd offers a cross-section of medieval society and its concerns, merchants discussing wool prices and shipping delays, craftsmen debating the quality of materials, farmers worrying over weather patterns and crop yields, women exchanging remedies for common ailments, young men boasting of exploits real or imagined, elders reminiscing about the hardships of years past. You realize you're eavesdropping on the collective conversation of a society, its hopes, fears, ambitions, and grievances all voiced within these walls. The inn isn't just a business, it's a crucial social institution where community happens. "That merchant caravan outside," says the cook, appearing beside you with a fresh batch of bread. 30 people wanting food, just like that, going to need more pottage. She doesn't seem distressed by this, merely stating the reality of inn life, constant adjustment to fluctuating demand. Through the window, you see the merchant caravan beginning to organize itself for departure. Their stop has been brief but productive. Animals watered, people fed, business connections made, information gathered. Medieval travel efficiency at its finest. Inside, the common room settles into its post-meal lull. This is a quieter, more contemplative phase of the inn's day. A few patrons doze at tables. The serving boys move at a more relaxed pace, cleaning up from the midday rush. The innkeeper himself takes a rare moment to sit down, sharing a cup of better quality wine with one of the wool merchants, their conversation low and punctuated by occasional knowing laughter. This, too, is part of the rhythm of the medieval inn, the brief respite between meal services, the calm before the next wave of activity. Outside, the afternoon sun begins its slow descent. The shadows in the courtyard lengthen imperceptibly. Another transition approaches. The innkeeper glances around his domain with the satisfaction of a man whose complex business is functioning exactly as it should. Meeting your eye, he raises his cup in a small salute, acknowledging your observation of this world within a world, this crossroads of commerce, communication, and community that is the medieval inn at midday. The afternoon sun hangs heavy in the sky as a peculiar quiet descends upon the White Hart Inn. The frantic energy of morning departures and midday commerce has faded, leaving behind a drowsy lull that feels almost sacred. This is the hidden interval in a medieval inn's day. The brief window, when time itself seems to slow, when even the most bustling establishment catches its breath before the evening's demands. You find yourself in the courtyard, enjoying the relative peace. A few chickens scratch in the dirt, pecking at invisible treasures. The inn's cat, the professional mouser you met in the kitchen before dawn, sprawls in a patch of sunlight, one eye lazily tracking the chickens, as if calculating whether they're worth the effort on such a warm afternoon. The relative quiet is broken by the distant sound of creaking wheels. You look toward the road and spot a heavily laden cart making its slow approach. The cart is piled high with split logs, firewood, one of the inn's most crucial supplies. "Right on time," says the innkeeper, appearing beside you. He shed his more formal midday demeanour, sleeves now rolled up, ready for physical work. "Afternoon wood delivery. Can't run an inn without a mountain of firewood." The cart enters the courtyard, pulled by a sturdy draught horse and guided by a weathered man with arms like tree trunks. This must be the woodsman, another essential link in the inn's supply chain. "Thomas," the innkeeper greets him. "Good load today?" The woodsman, Thomas, apparently, nods. "Oak and ash, mostly. Some birch." Been seasoning since last winter, so it'll burn clean. He eyes you curiously. New help? Just passing through, says the innkeeper before you can answer, but lending a hand today. He turns to you with a look that somehow combines request and command. Speaking of which, we could use help unloading, and just like that, you're drafted into the medieval firewood brigade. Thomas manoeuvres his cart close to a covered area at the side of the courtyard, a woodshed designed to keep the precious fuel dry. The unloading process is simple but backbreaking. Thomas and the innkeeper take position at the cart, heaving armfuls of split logs down to you and a couple of stable boys who've appeared to help. Your job is to stack them neatly in the woodshed. The rhythm of the work soon has you sweating despite the cooling afternoon. Lift, stack, return, repeat. The physical reality of maintaining a medieval inn hits you in muscles you didn't know you had. Your soft modern hands quickly develop splinters, making you envy the calloused palms of your medieval counterparts. In this size goes through 2, sometimes 3 cartloads a week in winter, Thomas tells you between loads. Cooking, heating, hot water, all needs feeding with wood. He nods toward the innkeeper. Hart here knows to buy ahead and store it proper. Some innkeepers try to save coin by buying green wood, then wonder why their fires smoke and their rooms stay cold. The innkeeper grunts in acknowledgement as he heaves another armload down. Can't skimp on wood or ale, guests forgive a lumpy bed faster than a cold room or weak drink. As you work, you notice how the woodpile is organised. Not just a random heap, but a carefully managed system. Older, fully dried wood at the front for immediate use. Newer deliveries at the back to continue seasoning. Different types separated according to purpose. Oak for long-lasting heat. Quick-burning birch for fast-cooking fires. Fragrant applewood saved for smoking meats. Just one more example of the sophisticated systems that keep this medieval business running, invisible to most guests but crucial to their comfort. The unloading takes the better part of an hour. When the cart stands empty, Thomas produces a cloth-wrapped package from beneath his seat. And wife sent these, thought you might like them for the evening crowd. The innkeeper unwraps the cloth to reveal several bundles of herbs, rosemary, sage, and something that might be lavender. Bless her, he says, genuinely pleased. These'll freshen the common room nicely. A small transaction follows, not with coins, but with a large wrapped package the innkeeper retrieves from the kitchen. Leftover bread and 2 pork knuckles, he says, and a jug of the new ale to try. Thomas accepts this payment with a satisfied nod. The medieval economy runs as much on barter and exchange as it does on actual currency, especially among regular business partners with established relationships. Back in a few days, Thomas says as he climbs back onto his cart. Save those jugs. Need them back. As he departs, the innkeeper turns to you. Good work. You've earned a rest and something to drink. Inside, the common room has transformed yet again. The midday crowd has largely dispersed, leaving only a few dedicated drinkers nursing cups of ale in corners. Serving boys sweep the floor and wipe down tables, preparing for the evening to come. The innkeeper leads you to a small table and gestures for a boy to bring drinks. Afternoon's always quiet, he explains, settling his bulk onto a bench with a sigh of relief. Everyone's either gone back to work or sleeping off their dinner. Won't pick up again until travellers start arriving for the night. This lull, you realise, is a strategic opportunity for the inn to prepare for evening demands. The staff doesn't waste it. All around you, people are engaged in essential tasks. The cook stands in the kitchen doorway, chopping vegetables for the evening pottage. 2 young girls scrub floor rushes with herbs to freshen them. The innkeeper's wife sits at a table checking off items in a ledger, her lips moving silently as she counts. "What's the hardest part?" you ask the innkeeper, genuinely curious about the challenges of running a medieval hospitality business. He considers this as he takes a deep drink of ale. "Balance," he says finally. "Having enough but not too much. Food that spoils before it's eaten is money lost. Rooms that sit empty, same thing. But turn away guests because you're short on bread or beds, that's reputation damaged. How do you know how many will come each night?" He shrugs. "You don't, not exactly, but you learn the patterns. Market days bring merchants, saints' feast days bring pilgrims, good weather brings everyone. Certain seasons are busy, others so quiet you wonder if the road itself has died." He taps his temple. "Good innkeeper keeps all that up here, plans accordingly." This conversation is interrupted by the arrival of yet another supplier, a round-faced woman carrying a covered basket that emanates a distinctly dairy-like smell. "Ah, Mistress Ellen," says the innkeeper, rising to greet her. "The cheese arrived safely, I see." 6 rounds of hard cheese for storing, she confirms, placing her basket on the table, and 2 soft ones for eating soon, made just yesterday. You peer into the basket to see the neat rounds of cheese, some wrapped in cloth, others in leaves. Medieval refrigeration relied on cool storage spaces and careful timing. The hard cheeses would last months in the right conditions, while the soft varieties needed to be consumed within days. "Perfect," says the innkeeper, examining her wares with an expert eye. "The last batch was excellent. Had a merchant from London ask where I got it." The cheesemaker beams at this praise. "Did you tell him?" "Course not," the innkeeper scoffs. "Let him think it came from France or somewhere fancy. Charged him double, I did." They both laugh at this deception, another small way the innkeeper maximizes profit while supporting local suppliers. The business relationship is clearly well established and mutually beneficial. As with the woodsman, payment involves both coin and barter, a small silver penny plus kitchen scraps valuable for feeding the cheesemaker's pigs. The medieval waste recycling system continues to impress you with its efficiency. After she leaves, the innkeeper dispatches a serving boy to carefully store the cheeses in the cool cellar beneath the inn. "Keep the soft ones separate," he instructs. "Those are for the merchant dinner tonight, not general serving." Another example of the inn's tiered service model, better quality items reserved for wealthier guests willing to pay premium prices. Your attention is drawn to the courtyard door, which opens to admit a boy of perhaps 14, dressed in the dust-covered clothes of someone who's been travelling on foot. He heads straight for the innkeeper. "Master Hart," he says breathlessly. "Message from the Crown at Millbrook." The innkeeper gives the boy a cup of water, which he drinks gratefully before continuing. "Richard says to tell you a noble party's heading this way, should reach you by evening, 6 in the main group, plus servants and guards, at least a dozen horses all told." This news causes an immediate shift in the inn's energy. The innkeeper straightens, mind clearly calculating implications. "When did they leave Millbrook?" "Just after midday," the messenger reports. "So they'll arrive by sunset," the innkeeper mutters, half to himself. Time enough to prepare. He flips the boy a small coin. "Good work, lad. Tell Richard I'm grateful for the warning." As the messenger departs, the innkeeper claps his hands sharply, drawing his wife's attention. "Noble party coming. Millbrook just sent word, a dozen or more with horses." She's on her feet immediately, ledger forgotten. "How many chambers will they need?" "Clear the 3 best ones, plus the long room for servants. We'll put their guards in with our stable hands if needed." What follows is a flurry of activity as the inn shifts into high alert preparation mode. The innkeeper's wife begins issuing rapid-fire orders to the serving staff. fresh rushes in all the upper chambers. Get the good linen out for the beds, silver cups, not wooden, and the matching platters. Tell cook we need something better than pottage for the main table tonight. The lazy afternoon atmosphere vanishes completely. Girls rush upstairs with armfuls of clean linens. Boys are dispatched to the cellar to bring up the better wine and the innkeeper's prized silver cups. Not actually silver, you suspect, but pewter polish to a high shine. The cook emerges from the kitchen, wiping her hands, to consult with the innkeeper's wife about the evening meal. Their conversation is intense and detailed, centering on how to transform ordinary provisions into something that will satisfy noble expectations. The capon we were saving for Sunday? Yes, and perhaps the rabbit pie. Do we still have those dried fruits from France? A small amount. Enough to garnish at least. You find yourself once again drafted into service, this time helping to spread fresh rushes on the floor of the common room. These aren't just ordinary reeds, but are mixed with dried herbs, the ones from the woodsman's wife and others from the inn's own store. As you scatter them across the floor, they release a pleasant, fragrant smell that helps combat the less appealing odours of a well-used medieval public space. Nobles expect special treatment, explains the serving boy working alongside you. Clean rushes, best food, private chambers, their own servants attended to, and they still complain more than ordinary folk. Why bother with them then, you ask? He looks at you like you've lost your mind. Because they pay triple or more what ordinary travellers do. One noble party can bring in as much coin as a week of regular guests. The economic reality of medieval hospitality laid bare. Social hierarchy translated directly into business strategy. Outside in the courtyard, similar preparations are underway. Stable boys muck out the best stalls and put down fresh straw in anticipation of the noble horses. The stablemaster inspects each space personally, knowing that noblemen often value their horses' comfort as much as their own. The innkeeper himself has disappeared into his private office with his ledger, presumably rearranging the night's planned accommodations to make space for these unexpected but lucrative guests. In the kitchen, the afternoon's relaxed pace has been replaced by controlled chaos. The evening meal preparation, normally a steady process, has been thrown into disarray by the need for special dishes on short notice. The cook barks orders at her assistants while aggressively chopping herbs. You fetch more onions from the cellar, and you turn that capon on the spit before it burns on one side. The massive fireplace now holds several cooking operations simultaneously. A capon turning slowly on a spit, tended by a sweating boy, a large pot of pottage still simmering for regular guests, and a smaller, more carefully seasoned stew for the noble table. The cook catches you watching and immediately puts you to work. Don't just stand there. Chop these carrots. Small pieces, mind you, not chunks a horse would choke on. Your modern knife skills are put to the test as you tackle the pile of vegetables before you. Medieval carrots, you discover, are nothing like their modern descendants. Smaller, tougher, and often forked into bizarre shapes that make uniform chopping nearly impossible. Those nobles better appreciate this, grumbles the cook as she expertly dismembers a rabbit for a pie. Last month, Lord whoever he was complained the sauce had too much garlic. Too much, as if there's such a thing. Despite her complaints, you can tell she takes genuine professional pride in rising to the occasion. The chance to cook for distinguished guests, however demanding they might be, is an opportunity to demonstrate skill and creativity within the constraints of medieval cuisine. Throughout the inn, the afternoon's peaceful lull has been completely shattered. Every staff member moves with renewed purpose, transforming the space from its everyday state to something more refined. It's a fascinating glimpse into medieval hospitality's response to social hierarchy. The same building, the same staff, but an entirely different level of service activated on demand. The innkeeper returns to the common room, now pausing at each table to ensure preparations are progressing properly. He straightens a bench here, rearranges cups there, all with the careful eye of someone who knows exactly how his establishment should present itself to important visitors. Noticing your industry in the kitchen, he nods approvingly. "Keep that up, and you might have a future in inn work," he jokes. "What happens when they arrive?" you ask, curious about the protocol for noble guests. "I'll greet them in the courtyard personally," he explains. "My wife will show them to their chambers while their servants settle their horses and belongings. We'll serve wine in their rooms immediately." Hospitality gesture. "Then dinner in the private dining room, not out here with common folk." The inn, it seems, contains spaces you haven't even seen yet, areas reserved exclusively for higher-paying guests who expect separation from ordinary travellers. The afternoon wears on, the sun slowly descending toward the horizon. The quality of light through the windows shifts from the harsh brightness of midday to the softer golden hue of approaching evening. Outside, shadows lengthen across the courtyard. The inn has now been completely transformed in anticipation of the night to come. Fresh rushes carpet the floors, fragrant with herbs. Tables have been scrubbed, benches straightened. The hearth fire burns cheerfully, newly stoked with choice pieces of aged oak. In the kitchen, savoury smells promise a meal several steps above ordinary inn fare. Staff members take advantage of the final quiet moments before the evening rush to snatch quick meals for themselves or change into cleaner clothing. The innkeeper dons a better quality tunic while his wife arranges her hair beneath a fresh cap. From your vantage point near the kitchen door, you observe this medieval business shifting like a living organism, adapting to changing circumstances with practiced efficiency. What was, just hours ago, a quiet space for local business has been reconceived as a worthy stopping place for nobility. The sun touches the horizon, painting the courtyard stones with golden light. Any moment now, the evening travellers will begin to arrive. Ordinary folk seeking simple shelter, merchants requiring comfortable accommodation, and now, unexpectedly, nobles demanding the best the inn can provide. The White Hart stands ready, its transformation complete. The innkeeper positions himself near the main door, prepared to welcome the night's first guests. His wife makes a final inspection of the common room, adjusting a cup here, straightening a bench there. In the kitchen, the cook wipes her hands on her apron and surveys her domain with the satisfaction of someone who has met a significant challenge. The evening's food is prepared, requiring only final touches before serving. The medieval inn holds its breath in this moment between preparation and arrival, potential energy waiting to be released. Through the open door, the sound of distant hoofbeats announces the first travellers of the evening. Another phase in the life of the White Hart is about to begin. The first evening travellers arrive not with the dramatic flair of nobility, but with the weary determination of ordinary folk. A family of 4 trudges into the courtyard, the father leading a tired donkey laden with modest belongings, the mother carrying a sleeping infant, and a young boy of perhaps 6 trailing behind, kicking stones to entertain himself on the final steps of their journey. "Welcome to the White Hart," greets the innkeeper, offering a polite but not overly enthusiastic welcome to these clearly modest means travellers. "Seeking beds for the night?" "Aye, if they're not too dear," replies the father, a craftsman of some sort, judging by his calloused hands and the tools visible among their possessions. Been on the road since dawn. Wife's feet are about done in. You watch from near the kitchen door as the innkeeper quickly assesses their finances and needs. 3 pennies gets you floor space in the common room, straw mats included, another penny for the donkey in the stable. A brief negotiation follows, conducted with the practiced rhythm of people who understand the dance of commerce. Price settled, the family enters the common room, visibly relieved to be off the road. And so it begins. The evening arrival pattern unfolds before you like a well-rehearsed play, each new entrant bringing their own energy to the slowly filling space. A pair of monks arrive next, dusty from travel but moving with the steady pace of men accustomed to long journeys on foot. They request the simplest accommodation, floor space near the hearth and a bowl of whatever pottage the kitchen offers. Their coins come from a small leather purse that returns quickly to the folds of a robe. Even in their modesty, you notice, they're given slightly better treatment than the craftsman's family. A quiet corner is specially cleared for them, a small nod to their religious status. The stable yard grows busier as more travellers arrive. A merchant with 2 pack horses laden with cloth samples, a group of pilgrims returning from a distant shrine, identifiable by the badges sewn to their hats. 3 young men who might be students or apprentices, travelling together for safety and splitting the cost of a single bed. Each arrival follows the same basic pattern: greetings, negotiation, payment, settlement. The innkeeper or his wife assesses each guest's status and means with a quick glance, offering accommodations appropriate to both their needs and their apparent ability to pay. "Noble party coming," a stable boy reminds the innkeeper as the courtyard briefly empties. "Which stalls should we save for them?" "The 4 largest ones near the main gate, and make sure there's fresh water in the troughs." No sooner has this instruction been given than the distinct sound of many hooves announces a new arrival, but it's not the noble party, not yet. Instead, a merchant caravan enters the courtyard, 5 heavily laden wagons accompanied by teamsters and guards. The caravan master, a hard-faced woman with a business-like demeanour, dismounts from her horse and approaches the innkeeper. "Margaret Cooper," she introduces herself. "We need secure storage for our goods, stabling for 12 horses and beds for 15. 2 private rooms if you have them, the rest can share." This large party creates a flurry of activity. The stable master personally directs which animals go where. The innkeeper leads Margaret to inspect the storage options, a locked room adjacent to the stables where valuable merchandise can be secured overnight. "2 guards will remain with our goods," she insists. "They'll need food brought to them." The innkeeper agrees with a nod. Customer accommodations are flexible when the party is large enough to justify special arrangements. You've been sent to help in the kitchen, where the cook is in her element orchestrating the evening meal service with military precision. The large cauldron of pottage, thicker and more substantial than the midday version, bubbles over the fire. Fresh loaves are arranged in baskets. The special dishes for the expected noble guests wait covered on a side table. "Take this to the monks," the cook instructs, handing you 2 wooden bowls of pottage topped with an extra ladle of the fatty broth that adds both flavour and precious calories. And mind you don't spill it. Carrying the bowls carefully through the increasingly crowded common room, you navigate around new arrivals still settling their belongings. The monks accept their meal with quiet thanks, immediately bowing their heads in prayer before eating. Back in the kitchen, the next delivery is ready, this time for the merchant family, their bowls containing noticeably less of the precious fatty broth. The medieval class system extends even to ladle depths. With each trip through the common room, you witness its transformation. What was an empty space hours ago now buzzes with humanity. Travelers claim tables and benches, spreading out their few possessions to mark territory. The central fire has been built up, casting warm light throughout the space and combating the evening chill. The innkeeper's wife oversees the room's organisation with sharp eyes and sharper tongue. Move your packs against the wall, she instructs a group of young travellers. People need to walk here. They comply immediately, recognising the authority in her voice. The atmosphere grows livelier as more travellers are served food and drink. Hunger satisfied, people begin to relax, their road-weary faces softening in the firelight. Conversations spring up between strangers who hours ago were miles apart, pursuing separate lives. A round-faced man pulls out a small wooden flute and begins playing a simple tune. Nearby travellers tap along or nod appreciatively. In another corner, a chessboard appears, drawing a small crowd of onlookers to the match. "They're here," announces a stable boy breathless from running. The noble party, just coming up the road. The long-anticipated arrival sends the staff into final preparations. The innkeeper straightens his tunic. His wife checks that the special chambers are ready, and the cook gives last instructions for the noble dinner service. You're positioned in the kitchen when they arrive, but through the window you glimpse the procession entering the courtyard, a dazzling display of wealth on horseback. The nobleman himself rides a magnificent black stallion, his cloak lined with fur despite the mild evening. His wife and daughter follow on smaller but equally well-groomed mounts. Behind them come personal servants, guards with swords at their hips, and pack horses carrying elaborate travelling chests. The innkeeper greets them in the courtyard with deep bows and effusive welcome, a performance entirely different from his reception of ordinary travellers. You can't hear the exact words, but the body language speaks volumes. Here is a man showing appropriate deference to social superiors while simultaneously assessing how much he can charge for the pleasure of their company. Inside the common room, a subtle reorganization happens without explicit instruction. Regular guests shift away from the entrance and the best seating areas, making space for the noble visitors to pass through on their way to the private chambers upstairs. A pathway clears as if by magic, the physical manifestation of social hierarchy. The noble party does not linger in the common space. The innkeeper's wife personally guides them upstairs while servants begin the complex process of unloading their belongings. The brief glimpse ordinary travellers get of these elevated guests creates a ripple of whispers and speculation. "That's Lord Blackwell," you overhear someone say, "owns half the county east of here. Did you see the jewels on his wife's gown, worth more than my whole workshop? They say he's in favour with the king himself." The noble family's invisible presence upstairs somehow changes the atmosphere of the entire inn. Even hidden from view, their status affects everything. Staff move more carefully, conversations become slightly more restrained. Everyone seems aware that important ears might hear them. In the kitchen, special plates are prepared for the noble table. The capon turned golden brown on the spit, the rabbit pie with its carefully decorated crust, wine mulled with expensive imported spices. These dishes bypass the common room entirely, carried up the back stairs to the private dining chamber. For everyone else, it's pottage and bread, perhaps with a bit of cheese for those willing to pay extra. This standard medieval meal is nonetheless received with genuine appreciation by hungry travellers. Food is food, and hot food after a day on dangerous roads is a blessing worth savouring. The common room has now reached its full evening capacity. Every bench is occupied, with later arrivals finding spaces on the floor. The noise level rises as food, drink, and the security of shelter loosen tongues and lift spirits. Medieval travellers, you realise, are not so different from modern ones, grateful for safe haven, eager for social connection after lonely roads, hungry for both food and news. The inn staff move through this controlled chaos with practiced efficiency. Serving boys weave between groups, collecting empty bowls and delivering fresh drinks. The innkeeper circulates, checking that all is well, settling minor disputes before they escalate, always alert for potential problems that might disturb his profitable noble guests. In one corner, the dice game that started innocently enough is getting rowdier as the stakes rise. Two merchants who clearly don't know each other well are accusing each other of cheating, their voices growing louder with each exchange. "I saw what you did with that die. Are you calling me a cheat, you provincial hack?" Before the situation can deteriorate further, the innkeeper materializes beside them, accompanied by the largest of the stable hands, a young man whose shoulders barely fit through narrow doorways. "Gentlemen," the innkeeper says, quietly but firmly, "perhaps you've had enough excitement for one evening. Shall we settle your wagers and save the rest for tomorrow?" The implied threat of physical removal, coupled with the innkeeper's reasonable tone, diffuses the situation. Coins are reluctantly exchanged, the dice disappear into a pocket, and the potential disruption is averted. "Well handled," you comment when the innkeeper passes near the kitchen door. He shrugs modestly. "Deal with it every night. Men drink, men gamble, men fight. Part of running an inn is knowing when to step in." A commotion at the main door draws everyone's attention. A latecomer has arrived, a slender man carrying what appears to be a stringed instrument wrapped in oiled cloth. He surveys the crowded room with the practiced eye of a performer assessing an audience. "Ah," says the innkeeper, with evident pleasure. "Thomas the Troubadour. Didn't expect to see him until next week." The musician unwraps his instrument, a type of medieval lute, and quietly tunes it in a corner while accepting a cup of ale from a serving boy. There's no formal announcement, no stage or spotlight, but gradually the room's attention shifts toward him as he begins to play. The music transforms the atmosphere instantly. The melodies are unfamiliar to your modern ear, modal scales and rhythms that belong uniquely to this time and place, but their effect is universal. Conversations quiet, weary faces lift. For a moment, the hardships of medieval life are suspended in the simple pleasure of music. Between songs, the troubadour shares news and stories from his travels. This, you realise, is medieval mass media in action. Information and entertainment spread by wandering performers, connecting isolated communities through shared songs and tales. "They say the king's raised a new tax in the southern counties," the troubadour announces, fingers still idly plucking his strings. 3 pence per household, supposedly for the war effort. This news provokes a chorus of groans and muttered complaints. Nobody likes taxes, regardless of century, and they're still talking about that strange light seen over London last month, he continues. Some say it was angels, others claim it was demons. The bishop declares it was a divine warning about the sinful ways of the city folk. These nuggets of news and rumour are received as eagerly as the music. In a world without newspapers or broadcasts, a troubadour's gossip might be the freshest information available about the world beyond one's immediate surroundings. You notice how carefully he phrases certain items, particularly those touching on politics or powerful figures. Even here, in this common inn far from centres of power, there's awareness that the wrong words about the wrong people could bring trouble. The troubadour strikes up a popular song and several travellers join in the chorus, a bawdy refrain about a miller's daughter and her many suitors. For a moment, the divisions between different travellers dissolve. The weary craftsman, the merchants, the pilgrim, even some of the caravan guards, all united briefly in music and laughter. Through it all, the innkeeper and his staff maintain the steady rhythm of service. Fresh rushes are spread where the floor has become dirty, candles are lit as darkness deepens outside, more ale is brought from the cellar, the common room transitions from dinner space to evening entertainment venue to eventual sleeping area, all without interrupting its function as the heart of the inn. The noble family remains sequestered upstairs, but their servants begin to filter down to the common room. Having completed their duties, they cluster together at first, maintaining the separation their association with nobility grants them. Gradually, though, the music and the general good cheer erode these barriers. A lady's maid accepts a cup of ale from a merchant. A manservant joins the audience for a chess match. Night has fully fallen now. Through the windows, only darkness is visible, making the inn feel all the more like a haven of warmth and light in the medieval wilderness. The gates to the courtyard have been closed, not locked yet in case of late arrivals, but positioned to mark the boundary between the safe interior world and the dangerous unknown beyond. The troubadour finishes a set of songs and takes a break, moving through the crowd to collect appreciative tokens, small coins, cups of ale, even a woolen scarf from a weaver impressed by his talent. This is how he makes his living, through the generosity of audiences, rather than formal payment from the inn. He'll play again later, the innkeeper tells you, noticing your interest in the performer. Always does 3 sets, ending with quiet songs to settle everyone down for sleep. The thought of sleep reminds you that the common room will soon transform yet again, from social space to communal bedroom. Already, some travellers have claimed corners and are arranging their cloaks or blankets into makeshift bedding. The elderly, the very young, and those most exhausted from travel are the first to seek rest, curling up on benches or in nooks despite the continuing noise. The innkeeper surveys his domain with the satisfaction of a successful businessman. Every bed is filled, both upstairs and in the side rooms. The common floor will be covered with sleeping travellers before the night is done. The ale is flowing freely, adding to his profit margin. Even the unexpected arrival of nobility has been accommodated smoothly. "A good night," he says, more to himself than to you. "A very good night indeed." Outside, the darkness holds unknown dangers. Wolves, bandits, the simple perils of unlit roads and unfamiliar terrain. But inside the White Hart, medieval travellers have found what humans in every century seek: safety, sustenance, company, and perhaps a brief moment of joy in the music of a wandering troubadour. The innkeeper moves away to settle a minor dispute over seating arrangements. The fire crackles in the central hearth, sending shadows dancing across the crowded room. For all its differences from modern accommodation, the smoke, the shared space, the lack of privacy, the medieval inn fulfills the same fundamental purpose as its descendants across the centuries, providing sanctuary to those far from home. Evening has fully arrived at the White Hart, and with it the most social phase of the inn's daily cycle. What happens next, as night deepens and weary travellers seek their rest, is yet another chapter in the rhythm of this medieval crossroads. Night creeps over the White Hart like a living thing, deepening shadows in corners, making the fire's glow seem brighter, more necessary. Outside, darkness is complete. No streetlights, no headlights, just the occasional glimpse of stars between clouds and maybe a distant lantern from another building. Inside, the common room has reached its final form of the day, no longer a dining hall or meeting place, but a curious hybrid of entertainment venue and dormitory. The troubadour has returned to his corner after a brief rest, instrument tuned, voice cleared with a sip of ale. His second set begins with livelier songs than his first, ballads that invite participation, stories set to music that capture attention. Here's one you might know, he announces, strumming an introduction. The tale of Sir Roland and the Enchanted Forest. Several voices cheer in recognition. This must be a popular medieval hit, the equivalent of a crowd pleaser that gets everyone singing along. Sure enough, by the chorus, at least a dozen travellers have joined in, some singing with the practised ease of those who know the words well, others mumbling along, picking up phrases as they go. The music transforms the atmosphere again, creating a pocket of joy in what would otherwise be a rather uncomfortable situation. Dozens of strangers preparing to sleep in close proximity after long days of travel. You find yourself leaning against a wall near the kitchen, watching this scene unfold. The innkeeper appears beside you, also observing his common room with a proprietor's assessing eye. Every night's different, he comments. Same basic elements, but never the same mix, like cooking. Same ingredients, different flavour depending on who's in the pot. He nods toward the troubadour. Lucky to have Thomas tonight. Keeps them happy, keeps them spending on ale, and wears them out for sleeping. The innkeeper's practical view of entertainment as crowd control and profit generator rather than pure enjoyment reminds you again of the business calculations behind every aspect of the inn's operation. In a corner far from the music, an entirely different form of evening entertainment unfolds. An elderly pilgrim has attracted a small audience of his own with tales of his journeys to distant shrines. Unlike the troubadour's polished performances, his stories ramble and digress. But his listeners seem no less captivated. The cathedral at Santiago rises like a mountain made by man, he tells them, gnarled hands gesturing upward to illustrate impossible height. The journey near killed me, bandits in the passes, storms that soaked me to the bone, but the moment I saw those towers, every hardship fell away. His audience murmurs appreciatively. For people who might never travel more than 20 miles from their birthplace, such first-hand accounts of distant wonders are precious windows into a wider world. Elsewhere, the chess match that began earlier has drawn its own crowd, spectators whispering advice to the players, small wagers being placed on the outcome. Two merchants face off across the board, each move considered with exaggerated care, neither willing to lose face by making a hasty decision. "Your bishop's in danger," warns a helpful onlooker. "I can see that," snaps the player, clearly annoyed by the uninvited commentary. The dice game has resumed too, though with different players than the pair who nearly came to blows earlier. These gamblers are more careful, keeping their voices down, mindful of the innkeeper's earlier intervention. The medieval passion for gaming crosses all social boundaries. You spot both well-dressed merchants and rough-handed labourers among those watching the tumbling dice with hungry eyes. As the evening progresses, the common room gradually divides itself. Those seeking entertainment remain near the fire and the troubadour. Those preparing for sleep retreat to corners and shadows, arranging their few possessions into pillows or barriers to mark personal space in this communal environment. A family with small children has claimed a spot near the kitchen where residual warmth from the cooking fires seeps through the wall. The mother arranges her cloak on the floor, creating a makeshift bed for her children, who nestle together like puppies, already half asleep despite the noise. "First time at an inn?" you ask, offering her a spare blanket you've retrieved from the kitchen. She accepts it with a grateful nod. "First time travelling at all. We're moving to my husband's brother's town. He's found work there as a carpenter. Long journey? 3 days so far. One more, God willing." She tucks the blanket around her children. They've been so brave, the little ones. Not a complaint, even when their feet were blistered. This brief exchange offers a glimpse into the reality of medieval mobility, entire families uprooting themselves for economic opportunity, undertaking journeys that might seem trivial by modern standards but represent enormous commitments of time, resources, and risk in this era. The troubadour finishes a rousing song about a clever peasant girl who outwits a greedy lord. The subject matter, common folk triumphing over nobility, is enthusiastically received by the audience, though you notice one of Lord Blackwell's servants listening from the stairway frowns at the theme. Thomas seems to notice this reaction too, because his next selection shifts to safer territory, a heroic tale of knights and battles that offends no one and reinforces rather than challenges social hierarchy. Even entertainment is political in medieval spaces, you realise. The troubadour must navigate the expectations and sensitivities of a mixed audience, pleasing the common folk who make up the majority of his listeners without antagonising those with power. The innkeeper circulates again, checking on his guests, ensuring all is well. He pauses by a bench where an older traveller appears to be in some discomfort. "Joints troubling you, master?" he asks. The man nods, grimacing as he tries to find a comfortable position. "Roads aggravate my knees, something terrible. Used to be a soldier. Old wounds never fully heal." The innkeeper disappears briefly into the kitchen, returning with a small clay pot. "Rub this on. My wife makes it with herbs from our garden. Won't cure you, but might ease the pain enough for sleep." The traveller accepts this small kindness with evident gratitude. "God bless you, innkeeper." This interaction reveals yet another facet of the innkeeper's role, part businessman, part host, sometimes even amateur healer. In a world without convenience stores or pharmacies, such informal remedies are often the only relief available for common ailments. Near the main door, the innkeeper's wife supervises as a serving boy secures the entrance for the night, dropping a heavy wooden bar into brackets on either side of the door. The courtyard gate has already been locked, she confirms. The White Hart is now sealed against the dangers of the medieval night. "Anyone still outside is staying outside," she announces to the room at large. "Bars down for the night." This declaration prompts a few last-minute trips to the privy, the outdoor latrine that serves the inn. Nobody wants to be caught short during the night when leaving the building means waking the innkeeper for the key. The noble family upstairs has long since retired to their private chambers. Their evening meal concluded, their comfort assured by attentive servants. Their presence is still felt, however, in the careful way the innkeeper moderates noise levels as the hour grows later. "Keep it down," he warns a group of particularly enthusiastic singers. Quality guests upstairs need their rest. The troubadour reads the room expertly, transitioning to quieter, more soothing melodies as the energy naturally begins to ebb. His final set will be deliberately calming lullabies and gentle ballads designed to ease the transition to sleep. Meanwhile, the practical aspects of converting the common room to sleeping space continue around the edges of the entertainment. Serving boys collect abandoned cups and bowls. The innkeeper's wife distributes additional blankets to those who've paid for them. One corner of the room is designated for women travelling alone, offering modest separation, if not true privacy. Security arrangements for the night become visible too. The largest of the stable hands positions himself near the main door with a sturdy cudgel, not brandished threateningly, but present and visible. The message is clear: disturbances won't be tolerated once the room settles for sleep. "Do you have problems with theft?" you ask the innkeeper quietly. He shrugs. Show me a room full of strangers sleeping near their valuables, and I'll show you temptation. Most nights pass peacefully enough, but best to have what by the door discourages the opportunity seekers. The chess match concludes with a decisive victory for one of the merchants. Coins changing hands among spectators who wagered on the outcome. The players shake hands with formal courtesy before carefully packing away the carved pieces in a velvet-lined box. The dice game continues in hushed tones, players hunched close together to keep their activity semi-private. The innkeeper watches from a distance but doesn't intervene as long as they remain quiet. A new dynamic emerges as the common room transitions towards sleep, the complex negotiation of space between strangers forced into intimate proximity. Someone snoring provokes muttered complaints. A dispute arises over the boundary between two travellers' claimed floor space, requiring the innkeeper's diplomacy to resolve. Move your pack 2 handspans that way, he suggests to one. To the other, and you can have this extra blanket to make up for the narrower space. Both parties accept this solution, neither entirely satisfied but neither willing to make a scene. The social contract of the medieval inn requires compromise and tolerance from all guests. The troubadour begins what is clearly his final song of the night, a gentle, almost hypnotic melody with simple, repetitive lyrics that invite drowsy listeners to lose themselves in its rhythm. The road is long, the night is deep, but here we gather, safe to sleep. Tomorrow's journey waits till then, till morning light guides us again. As he plays, more travellers settle into their sleeping spaces. The family near the kitchen is already asleep, children and parents alike exhausted from their journey. The elderly pilgrim has found a spot against the wall, his travelling staff laid beside him, as if standing guard. The chess-playing merchants have claimed adjacent benches, using their cloaks as blankets. The common room's transformation is nearly complete. What began as an eating space became a marketplace, then a social hub, and is now in its final evolution, a communal bedroom unlike anything in modern experience. The innkeeper catches your eye and beckons you toward the kitchen. "Come," he says quietly. Staff eats last when the guests are settled. In the kitchen, the evening meal for the inn's workers is underway, a simple affair of leftover pottage, bread that's a bit stale, and small cups of watered ale. The cook, serving boys, stable hands, and chambermaids gather around the central table, too tired for much conversation but clearly appreciating this moment of rest after a long day. "Good work today," the innkeeper tells them, taking his own seat. "Lord Blackwell's man says they'll be staying tomorrow night as well. Extra coin for all of you if they leave satisfied." This announcement generates a small ripple of enthusiasm. Even the prospect of additional work seems welcome when paired with additional payment. You find yourself seated between a stable boy who can't be more than 12 and an older serving man whose lined face suggests decades in similar service. The contrast between them, one at the beginning of a working life, one near its end, offers a glimpse into the limited mobility of medieval occupations. The boy will likely grow into the man's position, and someone else's child will take his place in the stables, the cycle continuing unbroken. The meal is consumed quickly, everyone aware that sleep is a precious commodity in short supply. Kitchen staff will rise before dawn to begin bread making. Stable hands must be up to tend horses whose owners will depart at first light. Even a few hours of rest are valuable in this world of endless physical labour. As the staff finish eating, the innkeeper's wife distributes sleeping arrangements. Girls in the storage room behind the kitchen, boys in the stable loft. Mind you don't oversleep. Unlike guests, staff don't question their accommodations or complain about discomfort. This hierarchy of comfort, nobles in private chambers, common travellers in the common room, staff in whatever spaces remain, is simply the accepted order. "What about the night watch?" asks one of the older, stable hands. "Your first shift," replies the innkeeper, "until midnight, then wake Tom for second." Security, you realize, continues through the night. Not just the visible presence by the door, but actual guards patrolling the property at intervals. Medieval inns faced threats from both outside intruders and internal troublemakers. Vigilance was a business necessity. After the staff meal concludes, you follow the innkeeper back to the common room for a final check before he retires. The space has transformed yet again, now dark except for the dying fire and a few small rushlights maintained for safety. The troubadour has finished his performance and claimed his own sleeping space near the hearth, a choice spot reserved by the innkeeper as part of his compensation. Most travellers are now asleep or pretending to be, curled on benches or floor space, using packs as pillows, wrapped in cloaks or blankets against the night chill. The collective sound of breathing, punctuated by occasional snores or coughs, creates a peculiar intimacy. Dozens of strangers sharing this most vulnerable of states. The innkeeper makes a slow circuit of the room, checking that all is secure, that no candles remain lit to pose a fire hazard, that the most valuable items have been properly stored rather than left temptingly visible. "Sleep while you can," he advises you quietly. Kitchen fires start before dawn. With that, he retreats to his own quarters, a private room off the kitchen that he shares with his wife. Unlike their guests, they enjoy the luxury of a real bed raised off the floor on a proper frame with a straw-filled mattress and linen sheets, small privileges of ownership. Left alone in the common room, you find a vacant corner and settle in, using your cloak as both mattress and blanket as you've seen others do. The floor is hard beneath you, the smells of smoke, food, and unwashed bodies inescapable, the sounds of strangers unsettlingly close. Yet there's an unexpected comfort in this shared experience, the knowledge that for centuries travellers found rest in exactly this way, huddled together against the darkness, finding safety in numbers and shelter within solid walls. From your position, you can see the main door with its heavy bar, the glowing embers of the central hearth, and the shadowy forms of fellow travellers scattered across the room. The night watch, the stable hand assigned first shift, paces slowly around the perimeter, his footsteps a soft, reassuring rhythm in the darkness. Medieval darkness is profound in a way modern people rarely experience. No ambient light from electronics, no distant glow of cities, just the absolute absence of light where fire or candles don't reach. The corners of the room disappear into impenetrable shadow. Only the faint red glow of the banked hearth fire offers any illumination. In this near darkness, sounds become more prominent. The creaking of the building as it settles, the rustle of straw as someone shifts position, a child's sleepy murmur, the distant nickering of horses in the stable. Each sound anchors you in this moment, this place so removed from modern experience, yet connected by the universal human needs for shelter, safety, and rest. Despite the hard floor and strange surroundings, you feel yourself growing drowsy. The day's immersion in medieval inn life, from pre-dawn bread-making to this moment of communal sleep, has given you a glimpse into a world both utterly foreign and surprisingly familiar. The innkeeper was right about one thing. Every night at the White Hart is different, shaped by the unique combination of travellers who happen to converge on this spot. Tonight's gathering, the noble family, the merchant caravan, the craftsman's family seeking a new life, the pilgrim, the chess players, the musicians, will never be replicated exactly. Yet the pattern itself is ancient and enduring. For as long as roads have connected human settlements, travellers have sought shelter where those roads cross. Inns like the White Hart stand at these crossroads, offering the essentials that all journeys require: food, drink, shelter, security, perhaps even a moment of connection through shared stories or songs. Your last thought before sleep claims you is how these fundamental needs remain unchanged across centuries. For all the differences in comfort and convenience between medieval and modern travel, the core experience, seeking safe haven at day's end, connects you directly to every traveller who ever laid their head on this floor. Outside, the medieval night continues its slow passage. The watch changes at midnight, one weary guard replacing another. Inside, the White Hart cradles its temporary community in solid walls of stone and timber, a sanctuary against darkness until dawn brings the cycle back to its beginning. The deepest hours of night at the White Hart belong to shadows and secrets. Sometime after midnight, the common room achieves a rare state of near silence, broken only by the chorus of sleep sounds, the occasional creak of timber, and the soft footfalls of the night watchman making his rounds. This is the medieval midnight, the true dark of night, when even an inn full of travellers surrenders to the rhythms of a world without artificial light. You drift in and out of sleep on your hard corner of floor, never quite achieving the deep rest your body craves. Each time you surface to consciousness, you catch glimpses of the inn's nocturnal life, vignettes that most travellers, wrapped in exhausted slumber, never witnessed. The night watchman, Tom, who took over the second shift, paces slowly around the perimeter of the common room, pausing occasionally to listen at the main door or peer out a shuttered window. His presence is both security and deterrent, a visible reminder that the inn takes its responsibilities seriously. In his hand he carries a short cudgel, at his belt a ring of heavy iron keys. In his pocket, you imagine, there's a whistle or bell to raise alarm if needed. Most nights pass without incident, but medieval inns faced real threats, from opportunistic thieves targeting sleeping travellers to organised brigands who might see a prosperous establishment as worth the risk of a night raid. Tom's vigilance is not merely ceremonial. In one corner, the inn's mouser prowls with silent intensity. Earlier, she was a lazy presence in the sunny courtyard. Now, in these dark hours, she becomes a dedicated hunter, slipping between sleeping forms with liquid grace, eyes gleaming when they catch the faintest light from the banked fire. Her midnight patrols are as important to the inn's operation as any human task. Without her, vermin would quickly overrun the food stores. Near the hearth, where the fading warmth still offers comfort, the troubadour shifts in his sleep, muttering fragments of songs that filter into his dreams. His instrument lies carefully wrapped beside him, as valuable to his livelihood as a knight's sword or a scribe's quill. The merchant family who claimed a prime sleeping space near the kitchen wall sleep fitfully, parents instinctively shifting to check on children throughout the night. Even in sleep, the responsibility of guardianship continues, a universal constant across centuries of human experience. In the furthest corner from the door, where shadows are deepest, someone is not sleeping at all. A solitary traveller sits upright, back against the wall, eyes open and watchful. Trust comes hard to some who walk medieval roads. For this person, the risk of vulnerable sleep among strangers outweighs the discomfort of night-long vigilance. Outside, an owl calls. Once, twice, then silence. The night watch at the nearby church tower calls out the hour, though few are awake to hear it. 3 of the clock and all's well. 3 in the morning, a significant hour in the medieval inn's cycle. As if responding to some invisible signal, the kitchen door opens quietly. A boy of perhaps 10, the youngest of the kitchen apprentices, emerges carrying a small lantern. His job, the earliest of the morning tasks, is to rekindle the kitchen fires that have been banked overnight. The day at the White Hart begins not with dawn, but hours before, in darkness so complete it makes the small flame of his lantern seem brilliant by contrast. The boy moves carefully between sleeping forms practiced at this daily navigation. No one stirs as he passes. Travellers have learned to sleep through minor disturbances or risk getting no rest at all in these communal conditions. You rise quietly and follow him, drawn by curiosity about this transition moment, the precise point where one day ends and another begins. He doesn't question your presence as you enter the kitchen behind him, perhaps assuming you're another staff member assigned to early duties. The kitchen is cold, the massive hearth holding only the faintest embers from yesterday's fires. The boy kneels before it, adding kindling with careful deliberation. His movements are precise, economical, the actions of someone who performs this ritual daily and understands its importance. A failed fire means delayed bread, which means hungry travellers, which means an innkeeper's displeasure. Small flames catch, illuminating his concentrated face. He's still a child, you realise, yet bears responsibility that would overwhelm many adults in the modern world. His day began at 3 a.m. and will likely continue until after evening service concludes. Perhaps 16 hours of continuous labour, considered entirely normal in this medieval context. Need help? You whisper, mindful of sleeping travellers beyond the kitchen door. He looks up, surprised by the offer. You can fetch water if you want, 2 buckets from the well. Outside in the courtyard, the night feels different, larger, more enveloping, without walls to contain it. The stars overhead are brilliant in a way modern light pollution has erased from most experiences. The Milky Way stretches across the sky, a river of light that medieval travellers used as one of many celestial navigation aids. The well stands in the centre of the courtyard, its stone wall solid and reassuring in the darkness. You work the winch mechanism, listening to the creak of rope and the distant splash as the bucket hits water far below. Drawing water is harder than it looks. The filled bucket weighs far more than expected, requiring real strength to crank it back to the surface. By your second trip back to the kitchen, carrying sloshing buckets that strain your arms, more staff have appeared. The head cook has arrived, her imposing presence filling the space despite the early hour. 2 more kitchen boys, bleary-eyed but moving with purpose, are already measuring flour for the day's bread. Put it there, the cook directs, pointing to a large wooden trough where dough will be mixed. Then make yourself useful or get out of the way. The medieval workday waits for no one. There's no gentle easing into morning responsibilities, no moment of quiet contemplation with a cup of coffee. The rhythm of the inn demands immediate, focused labour from the moment of waking. The first fires are now burning properly, bringing welcome warmth to the kitchen. More lanterns are lit, creating pools of light in which each worker performs their assigned tasks. The space transforms from dark, cold emptiness to functional workshop through these deliberate human actions. The cook begins mixing dough in the large wooden trough. Flour, water, salt, and a piece of starter dough saved from yesterday's batch. Her strong arms work methodically, kneading and turning with practiced efficiency. This is the first bread of the day, which must be ready when travellers wake at dawn. More staff appear as the hour progresses. The innkeeper's wife arrives to check on kitchen preparations. A stable boy slips in for a quick drink of water before heading out to begin his own early tasks, checking on valuable horses, mucking out stalls in preparation for morning departures. Through the kitchen window, the faintest lightening becomes visible in the eastern sky. Not dawn yet, but its first harbinger. Night is beginning its slow retreat. In the common room beyond the kitchen door, the earliest risers among the travellers are beginning to stir, those with the furthest to travel that day, those with particularly valuable merchandise to check before departure, those whose internal clocks are set to farming rhythms regardless of circumstance. They move quietly through the pre-dawn darkness, gathering their possessions, preparing for the road ahead. The night watchman completes his final circuit of the common room before being relieved of duty. His replacement, one of the senior stable hands, will watch over the transition from night to morning when the inn is particularly vulnerable, as sleeping guests and drowsy staff might miss signs of trouble. Back in the kitchen, the first batch of dough has been divided into loaves and left to rise under clean cloths. The cook now turns her attention to breakfast pottage, a simpler version of the hearty evening stew, but still requiring early preparation to feed dozens of hungry travellers. "Stir this," she commands, handing you a long wooden paddle. "Keep it moving or it burns on the bottom." The familiar weight of the paddle in your hands connects you directly to the medieval world. This simple tool, unchanged for centuries, this basic task of food preparation essentially identical across time. Despite the distance of years, there's comfort in this continuity of human experience. Through the window, pre-dawn light continues to strengthen. The kitchen, now fully functioning, buzzes with purposeful activity. Boys run in and out carrying firewood, water, ingredients. The cook maintains control through a combination of barked orders and occasional cuffs to inattentive heads. The innkeeper's wife oversees it all, making mental calculations of how many mouths they'll need to feed in the hours ahead. In the stables, similar industry unfolds. Horses belonging to early departing travellers must be fed, watered, saddled. Carriages and carts need checking before the day's journey. Stable boys work by lantern light, their breath visible in the cold morning air, their movements economical and practised from repetition. The innkeeper himself appears in the kitchen doorway, fully dressed despite the early hour. "Any trouble in the night?" he asks his wife. "All quiet," she confirms, though Lord Blackwell's man was up and down the stairs half a dozen times, checking security, he said. The innkeeper nods thoughtfully. Noble travellers bring both profit and complication. Their custom is valuable, but their demands often excessive, their presence requiring additional vigilance against both external threats and internal mistakes that might cause offence. The eastern sky has shifted from black to deep blue, then to the luminous pearl grey that precedes true dawn. Morning birds begin their chorus, nature's own announcement that night is officially ending. Inside, the common room slowly comes alive. Those who slept on floor or bench rise stiffly, bodies complaining after hours on hard surfaces. They stretch, gather belongings, seek out the privy or washing water. The communal space that briefly united them in vulnerable sleep now returns to its daytime function, travellers once again becoming distinct individuals with separate destinations and purposes. The smell of baking bread begins to permeate the inn, the signature scent of morning that triggers hunger even in those still half asleep. The first batch of loaves has gone into the oven, their crusts already turning golden under the cook's expert timing. "Bread in 20 minutes, she announces to no one in particular, though the information is immediately relayed to the innkeeper and from him to inquiring travellers. In the courtyard, the earliest departures are already preparing to leave. A merchant with valuable goods to transport wants to maximize daylight travel hours. His servants load carefully packed bundles onto patient pack horses while he confers with the innkeeper about road conditions ahead. The North Road was passable yesterday, the innkeeper advises, but there was rain to the east. Expect mud if you're heading toward Norwich. This practical information, worth more than any medieval map, is received with appropriate gratitude. The merchant presses a small coin into the innkeeper's palm, a gratuity for specialized knowledge that might save hours of difficult travel. The innkeeper pockets the coin smoothly. One more small transaction in the complex economy of the White Hart, where information, services, and goodwill are commodities as valuable as the tangible food and shelter provided. Dawn proper arrives with surprising swiftness once it begins. The eastern sky flames briefly with colour, gold, then pink, then the clear blue that promises fair weather for travellers. Roosters from nearby farms announce the sun's arrival with competitive enthusiasm. The medieval day has officially begun. In the kitchen, the first loaves emerge from the oven, golden brown, crackling with heat, emanating the irresistible aroma of fresh bread. The cook inspects each one critically before pronouncing them acceptable. Her standards remain high regardless of the early hour or the social status of those who will consume her creations. Serving boys arrive to transport these first loaves to the common room, where early risers wait with eager anticipation. Breaking fast with fresh bread will fortify them for the day's journey ahead, providing both physical sustenance and the psychological comfort of beginning travel well fed. The innkeeper supervises this first food service of the day, ensuring that those who paid for better accommodation receive priority attention. The social hierarchy reasserts itself with morning light. Noble guests are served in their private chambers, merchants receive prompt attention in the common room, humbler travellers wait their turn with patient resignation. You find yourself back in the kitchen, drawn to the transformative magic of the bread-making process. The second batch of dough has risen and is being shaped into loaves by the cook's practiced hands. More firewood is added to the oven to maintain its precise temperature. Nothing is left to chance in this crucial morning ritual. First batch always tastes best, the cook tells you, noticing your interest. Something about the oven being fresh, or maybe it's just that everything tastes better when you're hungry. Her rare moment of reflection is interrupted by the arrival of more kitchen staff, older boys and young men who will take over the heavier work now that the day has fully begun. The youngest kitchen apprentices, having completed their pre-dawn duties, are sent to snatch a few hours of sleep before midday responsibilities begin. Through the kitchen window you can see the courtyard now fully illuminated by morning sunlight. The transformation from mysterious night space to practical working area is complete. Stable boys muck out stalls with greater efficiency now that they can properly see their work. Travellers inspect their horses and conveyances in preparation for departure. The innkeeper's wife appears at the kitchen door. Lord Blackwell and his family will break fast in 1 hour, she announces. Special porridge with honey and dried fruits. Use the good bowls. This instruction creates a flurry of additional activity. Special ingredients retrieved from secure storage. Pewter bowls polished to a high shine. Careful attention to the consistency and flavouring of the noble family's breakfast porridge. Meanwhile, in the common room, ordinary travellers consume their simpler meal with equal appreciation if less ceremony. The fresh bread, perhaps spread with a little precious butter for those willing to pay extra, represents a perfect start to the medieval travelling day. Simple, sustaining, portable if necessary. Early departures begin in earnest as the sun climbs higher. The courtyard fills with activity, horses being saddled, carts loaded, travelling groups gathering for the day's journey. The innkeeper stands by the main gate, bidding farewell to those leaving, settling last-minute accounts, offering final advice about roads and weather. Safe journey to Oxford. Watch for the flooded section near the Millers. God speed you to Canterbury. Each farewell contains both genuine goodwill and practical business sense. Travellers who depart satisfied are travellers who might return or recommend the White Hart to others. Inside, the transition to full mourning continues. The common room is swept and straightened after its night as dormitory. Fresh rushes are spread in areas soiled during the night. Tables and benches are returned to their proper positions for daytime use. Every trace of the communal sleeping arrangement is efficiently erased. The kitchen settles into its morning rhythm. Bread continues to emerge from the ovens in batches. Porridge is served according to demand and social status. Planning begins for the midday meal, still hours away. The cook moves between tasks with the practiced coordination of someone who's performed this daily dance for decades. As you watch this medieval morning unfold, you're struck by the circular nature of the inn's existence. What felt like an ending, the final departure of yesterday's guests, was merely a transition to today's beginning. The White Hart never truly sleeps. It merely shifts from one phase of its eternal cycle to another. Travellers depart, travellers arrive. Bread is baked, consumed, baked again. Rooms are occupied, vacated, cleaned, reoccupied. The pattern continues with variations, but never truly breaks. A perpetual rhythm established centuries ago and maintained through countless turnings of the seasonal wheel. In the courtyard, the last of the early departures passes through the gate. A momentary quiet descends, the brief interval between morning departures and midday arrivals, when the inn belongs primarily to its permanent residents. Staff use this time to complete cleaning tasks, maintain essential equipment, prepare for the day ahead. The innkeeper returns to the kitchen, pouring himself a small cup of ale, his own breakfast after seeing guests on their way. He looks tired but satisfied, a businessman whose enterprise has successfully navigated another night cycle. "Always the same," he remarks, echoing your thoughts about the inn's circular existence. They leave, others arrive, faces change but needs don't. He drains his cup in a single swallow. "Been that way since my grandfather's time, will be that way long after I'm gone." This simple observation contains profound truth. The medieval inn stands at a crossroads of human experience, a fixed point where countless individual journeys intersect briefly before continuing on separate paths. It witnesses fragments of thousands of lives without being changed by any of them. Yet its unchanging presence provides something essential, the certainty of shelter in an uncertain world, the knowledge that between here and there, between departure and arrival, there exist these islands of safety where basic human needs can be met. Outside, the morning sun illuminates a medieval world now fully awake and active. Inside, the White Hart continues its ancient cycle of hospitality, bread from the oven, porridge in the pot, ale in the cup, a place by the fire, simple elements that together create something necessary and profound, sanctuary. The cook removes another batch of perfect loaves from the oven, their golden crusts crackling as they cool. The rich aroma fills the kitchen and beyond, drawing travellers from their rooms, promising sustenance before the journey ahead. The cycle continues, as it has for centuries before, and will for centuries after, the timeless rhythm of the medieval inn keeping its own unique time at the crossroads of countless human lives. As you contemplate this perpetual cycle, your own eyelids grow heavy, your thoughts drifting like the smoke from the inn's chimney. The rhythmic sounds of kitchen work, the kneading of dough, the chopping of vegetables, the gentle bubbling of the porridge pot, create a soothing backdrop that invites deeper relaxation. The medieval inn has shared its secrets with you, from pre-dawn darkness to full morning light, its daily existence unfolding in all its complex, ordinary magic. Now, like a weary traveller who has found safe harbour after a long journey, you can finally surrender to the deep, peaceful sleep that comes with the knowledge of being sheltered, however briefly, within solid walls against a world of uncertainty.